offer. And the northwest also starting the day dry, but there will be low cloud and hill fog over some of the higher ground, especially around Greater Manchester, at a very chilly start as well. Cloud creeping in over parts of the Pennines in the northeast, while it will be brighter towards the coast. A cold start, very dry and also frosty. Scotland starting Monday morning with cloud in the north and the west, with brighter and colder conditions in the south and east. Dry though for most. Plenty of crisp winter sunshine for Northern Ireland, and light winds too. A cold start for the morning, a widespread ground frost as well. And a dry morning following for all, with the early mist and fog slowly clearing to leave plenty of winter sunshine. And that's how the weather's shaping up tomorrow morning.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Good morning. Just gone 6 o'clock. It's a Monday morning, the 17th of January.
Yeah, where's that weekend gone? Flown past, hasn't it?
Where's that month gone?
Indeed. Very warm welcome. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and with me, Isabel.
We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, we're on your radio as well, whether you're watching us in Belfast, whether you're listening to us in Edinburgh, maybe you're watching us, you can watch us on YouTube as well. In Cardiff, you could be anywhere. You could also be abroad via the GB News app as well while you're there, or indeed travelling to work or travelling to school.
Can't escape us, basically. Lots coming away this morning. Our top story, Sir Keir Starmer is under pressure to apologise after he was pictured drinking with colleagues during lockdown last year. Do you think he should?
Boris Johnson accused of attacking the BBC to divert attention from the Downing Street lockdown parties after the Culture Secretary signalled the licence fee will be scrapped after 2027. Do you think this is enough to save Boris's skin?
Prince Harry in a legal fight to pay for UK police protection. What do you think about this? We want to know your thoughts.
You can join in on any of the discussions that we'll be having today by emailing us gbviews@gbnews.uk, and indeed we hope to get some of you actually watching or listening right on the show. So feel free to get in touch and we'll try and get back to you. This morning we tweeted asking your thoughts on Prince Harry. Here's what you had to say. Of course, he's saying when he's in the UK, he wants Met Police armed protection. But fair to him, he said, I'll pay for it. But so far, no go. He's been denied. Tom Docherty, good morning, Tom. Tom says, regardless of his behaviour and actions, he is the grandson of the Queen. He's royal blood. He fought in a war with terrorism. Would we want to see a terrorist kill him in the UK by not protecting him, even if his actions are disliked? Not me, says Tom.
Very interesting. I suppose, is it enough, though, just to fund the policing? Because it will be taking resources away from dealing with other issues. That's the question, I suppose. Michael Bates.
He's 6 to 9.
I know. No, exactly. You can't remove that from him. Why are the government saying they won't let him pay for the protection? He wants to pay for it, no cost to the taxpayer. He wants to protect his family, as we all do.
Bran Wiley, why would he want to use UK police? They didn't see men walking by them with a suitcase full of booze or heard any parties in Downing Street. He's better go in private, says Bran Wiley there. Well, you know, keep those views coming in. But I think, in fairness to the guy, Isabel, I mean, he said, he had this protection before. I don't know where it's been reallocated. And he said, look, give me what I had and I'll pay for it. Hard to argue against. He said in his Oprah interview, didn't he, that the whole reason that he was doing all these big deals with Spotify and Netflix was so that he could pay for protection at their new home in the States. Was, of course, President Trump said that the American taxpayer wouldn't pay for their security. So he's made this argument, I'm doing all this stuff to pay and protect my family, let me come home. He wants to come home for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee this summer, of course. OK. The Prime Minister will commence what is called Operation Red Meat to distract Conservatives from the Partygate scandal and try and win back voter trust. Yeah, these plans include a booze ban in Number 10 and a pledge to bring in the military to combat the migrant crisis. Meanwhile, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer faces mounting pressure to apologise for his own drink-laden lockdown after he was pictured with a beer with Labour Party staff indoors in April. Let's go to Paul Hawkins, our reporter, to tell us more. Paul, what have you got to add to this?
Well, yeah, morning, Eamonn. Morning, Isabel. Yeah, Sir Keir Starmer was doing the media rounds yesterday, and he was asked specifically about that photo that appears on the front of the Mail this morning. This was taken in April last year, during which time England was on the roadmap to its way out of lockdown 3. It was on stage 2, which involved indoor mixing in different households, not allowed except for work. And he was asked about that picture of him, picture with 3 or 4 people drinking a beer through a constituency office in Durham. Now, his reply was, we stopped for something to eat and then we carried on working. There was no party, there was no breach of the rules. So he's saying it was a pause in work. It doesn't qualify as socialising, and that is why he's saying that he hasn't done anything wrong, and so there's nothing for him to say sorry. Of course, his critics would say it wasn't just a pause at work. It does qualify as indoor socialising, and you need to apologise. Yeah, well, of course, Paul, that's what the Prime Minister's claimed, isn't it? That he paused from work on the day of that fateful party, went into the garden, didn't know that there was a party, and then went back to work after 25 minutes. Now, we know that Sue Gray has interviewed him this weekend. When will we hear the details of that report? We're all waiting for that report, aren't we? We reckon it's in around a week to 10 days' time. No exact date on that, but when it is published, we should be clear. We're not going to find, Sue Gray is not looking to find any the Prime Minister to have broken any crimes. She's not looking at it as a criminal investigation. It is purely a fact-finding mission. She's going to talk to the staff at Number 10, people who used to work at Number 10. It is a fact-finding mission, and then it is up to the police, as they've said, whether they are then going to bring about a criminal investigation based on the findings of Sue Gray's report. Also, interestingly, out of that fact-finding mission, we'll be able to work out whether he has indeed broken the Prime Ministerial Code, although it puts Sue Gray in a tight spot because the Prime Minister, of course, is effectively her boss, and so she's investigating her boss, and only he can say whether the Prime Ministerial Code has been broken. So a little bit of conflict of interest there.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks very much indeed for the moment. That's our national reporter, Paul Hawkins. Unconfirmed reports saying that the BBC licence fee is expected to be frozen at £159 for the next 2 years. Culture Secretary Nadine Dorris tweeting that after this, new ways of funding, supporting and selling great British content need to be found.
Yes, the days of the elderly being threatened with prison sentences and bailiffs knocking on doors are over, she wrote.
Yeah. Well, we want to know your views on this today. I suppose massive own goal to try and prosecute pensioners for 159 quid when you get to a stage in your life when it's probably your only friend in life and you're relying on that company to penalise those people who need it the most. They can get their bus passes free. They can, there's lots of things, their prescriptions free and whatever, but you're going to pay to watch the TV.
And also, you know, the timing of this will really irritate many people because, you know, to go after Auntie, that has been the public service broadcaster for generations in this country, as what appears to be a tactic to distract from your own misdemeanours will be, you know, to a lot of people, as you say, the BBC is their friend as well as their broadcaster, and it will be a loss to them. So let us know your thoughts this morning. We will be speaking to the Shadow Culture Secretary, Lucy Powell, later in the programme.
There are a lot of own goals from the BBC, but, you know, I just like to say, you know, to anybody I know working in the BBC, they work blooming hard. Do you know what a BBC day is, Isabel?
It's a guaranteed 12-hour shift.
Guaranteed, guaranteed. You go out there and you say, oh, you know, will you work for us for a day? That means 12 hours. And people work really, really hard. And a lot of the problems, of course, you should bear in mind, are caused by you with the BBC, because the more you complain, the more they get all twitchy and they do things and they, well, you know, it's sometimes it's not a pleasure to work for them, but it's, you know, and there are a lot of things that have to be put right, but does everything have to be put right? Do we all want to end up, I know people complain about £159.
How much does a Netflix subscription cost per year?
Or a Sky subscription, or an Apple subscription, or a, what's the other one they do, Amazon, or
but this
whatever.
is uniquely British content as well.
Just, you know, be careful what you wish for. And are you ever going to get anything as cheap and anything that cares about local broadcasting? ITV doesn't care about local broadcasting. You know, they don't. If it wasn't for the BBC in your area, you wouldn't know what's going on in your area.
Listen to us, we sound like advertisement.
No. I'm just saying, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and competition is important as well in this industry.
Competition is very, very important. You're absolutely right.
And the other point is, you know, already the BBC's gone through an aggressive period of redundancies. We've seen a lot of certainly talented and experienced journalists leaving the corporation in the last
do more work.
Less people do more work. We've lost a lot of talent from within the British media. So, you know, now with this funding freeze, where does that leave them? Where are they going to make these costs? There's £2 billion shortfall now for the next 2 years. How are they going to £1 billion as a result of freezing?
That's a lot of programming.
That's a lot of programming. So let us know your thoughts. Would you be sad to see the back of the BBC or not?
Or not. Maybe you'll rejoice for whatever reason. Anyway, the headlines with the time at 6:09. 2 teenagers have been arrested and held in Manchester following an act of terror at a synagogue in Texas on Saturday night. Malik Faisal Akram, a British man from Blackburn in Lancashire, was shot dead by the FBI after holding people hostage in a 10-hour standoff.
From today, everyone in England can now end their self-isolation period after 5 full days instead of 7. That's as long as they test negative on days 5 and 6.
Yesterday, tennis player Novak Djokovic lost his court appeal to stay in Australia to defend that Australian Open title and was deported from the country. Finally, after the unvaccinated player had his visa cancelled, he was seen boarding a flight from Dubai to Belgrade earlier this morning. The tournament starts today in Melbourne.
Large outdoor public events such as football and rugby matches can take place again with fans as COVID restrictions in Scotland are relaxed. Rules were put in place on Boxing Day to limit the number of people who can attend to a maximum of 500. Restrictions on indoor sports events are still in place.
New Zealand has dispatched a surveillance flight today to assess the damage in Tonga after an underwater volcano erupted on Saturday and triggered a tsunami which blanketed the island with ash.
16 and 17-year-olds are now able to get a COVID booster jab from today, with 40,000 teenagers eligible. Clinically vulnerable 12 to 15-year-olds who are most at risk from coronavirus will also be able to get their top-up dose.
Front pages of the newspapers on this Monday morning. Here's how they shape up. Operation Dead Meat leads the eye. That's what senior Conservatives are calling the Prime Minister's plan to extricate himself from the Partygate scandal.
Here's the Mirror. It's talking about Johnson's scapegoats as the Prime Minister appears to shift the blame onto Downing Street staff.
Now, Daily Telegraph reporting the PM has already been questioned by Sue Gray, the civil servant who's leading an investigation into the allegations of the Downing Street parties.
Meanwhile, The Guardian says the PM is attacking the BBC as he throws out new policies to win back voter support.
Times leading on another red meat policy, Boris Johnson calling in the military. We suspect this is going to be an announcement to deal with the migrant crisis in the Channel.
The Daily Express is saying that Mr Johnson will fight tooth and nail to save his political future.
The Mail says the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, must say sorry for attending what they say was a social gathering with drinks during lockdown and him being photographed with an alcoholic drink in his hand.
The Independent features an exclusive that vulnerable child refugees are at risk as some are being wrongly deemed adults.
Sun leading with the title, On Your Own, Harry, as it reports the Queen won't help her grandson in his legal fight with the Home Office. The Prince is trying to pay for his own protection for whenever he enters the UK, but this request has been refused.
And finally, the Daily Star also focuses on this story, saying Harry thinks he's a totally ordinary bloke, but yet is going to court to say he's extraordinary and requires protection.
Right, well, here at GB News, we've been out and about across the UK to see what you think about the biggest stories and the stories that we are reporting here on the programme. This morning...
Yeah, we've got our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis. He's in Bakewell. Very good morning to you, Will. What's the temperature like where you are? And I'm not just talking about literally, but, you know, amongst the attitudes of the public you're talking to.
Good morning. It's the start of a brand new week here at GB News, a brand new week here in the East Midlands as well. You can tell just by the weather reports anywhere in the UK, it is freezing. But that story about Boris Johnson and the parties, it isn't going away, and it is what people are talking about here in Bakewell in Derbyshire as well. We are on your doorstep, live for GB News, on TV and, of course, on radio, bringing you the stories that matter to you. Today, we have got a very special person who is just behind this door here. It's Charlotte Bingham. She works in Bakewell. She's lived in Bakewell for most of her life, and the opinions here in Bakewell, they do matter. So let's see if Charlotte is in today. There is also a very lively chihuahua behind here, so we'll have to see how that goes with the audio levels. Hello, Charlotte. Hiya. You're live on GB News this morning, on TV and on radio. Who else is it that's with us today, Charlotte?
This is Bruno.
This is Bruno. And Bruno is, of course, a chihuahua. What does Bruno think about Boris Johnson?
By the sound of it, not very happy. Bruno.
And what about yourself? What do you think about this whole Partygate, the scandal that some people are referring to it as? What do you think? Are you following the news along with this?
I am following it, but I don't really think it actually pays any difference to our generation. Like, it's going to happen. People break rules. I mean, it is disrespectful because of all what the country has been through. But I don't feel that it's relevant anymore. It's
a story that's been going on since before Christmas. Obviously, last week we had an apology. All of the news came tumbling out, particularly during that PMQ session last week. But when I've been in Bakewell, a lot of people around here, they seem to want the news to carry on. They say that there's maybe bigger things to think about. Is that something that you and maybe your family and your friends would say?
Oh, 100%. It's happened, it's done. There's nothing you can do to change it. The outcome of whatever this inquiry is will finish whatever's going to happen. So just leave it to them and continue and figure out what the world needs now.
And a lot of people, they're talking about Keir Starmer as well, obviously the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Labour Party. Some people are trying to throw it back to him. What do you think about Labour? Obviously, this is particularly a Conservative area in Derbyshire Dales, which is where Bakewell is. What do people think about Keir Starmer and maybe the parties that he was attending, even if he denies that those were parties?
I mean, he's got a good voice, I'll give him that. He knows how to fight, but... is he on the right side of the fight? That's my only opinion, really.
And we're here on Stanton View in Bakewell. Bakewell is obviously a massive tourist destination. You get, I think it's 13 million people visiting every year. What's it like for somebody of your age who's in their 20s that actually lives in this Derbyshire town?
I mean, the tourism is great. It keeps the country running. It keeps the city running. But it's not great to live here necessarily unless you're used to the quiet life. I've lived here pretty much all my life, and it's such a nice area to grow up in. It's so calm, it's peaceful. There's a lot of tourist flow, but you've got that sense of localness.
And you're a retail worker. You're obviously a big fan of dogs. You work in a pet shop in the family business. What does that tourism trade do for your business, even if it's not necessarily part of the tourist walking Bakewell pudding bubble that is the area is so well known for?
Well, tourism is great for any business. For us, it's brilliant. We mainly rely on our locals because January months aren't brilliant for any business. But it's nice to have the different faces come through town to show that we are still a very popular town.
It's fantastic, and it's fantastic to be on your doorstep today. Charlotte Bingham here, live on GB News on TV and on radio. We're going to be in Bakewell visiting different people behind different doors, hearing the types of opinions that they have, the things that matter to them. But for now, back to you, Eamonn and Isabel in the studio.
William, even more important than that, you are in Bakewell, son. You're in Bakewell. Bakewell cakes, Bakewell tarts. What? I mean, do your job, man, will you?
Do you know what? Bakewell is such a fantastic place. The only problem is, when you come here for a visit, you end up leaving with a few extra pounds on. And my teeth are starting to get a sugary coating even after just being here for one weekend.
We need to see a Bakewell tart before the show is out. There's your challenge.
Do you know what? There are some fantastic doorsteps that I'm going to be taking you to this morning. Right now, we're just on Stanton View here in Bakewell, but there are a few people who have got some very special sweet treats on the way in just a couple of hours, and hopefully we can show you what Bakewell is very well known for.
Yeah, I'm very susceptible to a Bakewell tart, I have to say. Very susceptible. Thank you very much, Will Hollis there in Bakewell. Where is Bakewell? Is it Derbyshire?
Yeah, Derbyshire, right here in the heart of the East Midlands. If you go to right into the heart of the Peak District, it's such a stunning, beautiful town. There's around 4,000 people that live here, but 13 million people come here every year just to sample the Bakewell puddings and to walk in this beautiful Derbyshire landscape.
And I have been one of them. I have been there. Have you ever been?
No, for my sins.
Very nice part of the world. Very, very nice part of the world.
Thanks, Will.
We're doing well, aren't we, getting around the country?
We get around, and we're going from there now to Cardiff. Let's go to South Wales. There's been a bike-sharing scheme there that has resumed after staggering theft and vandalism put a stop to it last year.
Well, this is from a company called Next Bike, right? And they said the level of damage to those bikes was worse in Cardiff than anywhere else in the whole country. Let's go to our Wales reporter, Lily Hewitson there. She has the story. Over to you, Lily.
Oh, it's a long delay.
Can
you hear us, Lily?
It's a very long delay.
You can hear us. Oh, she's nodding. Tell us about these stolen bikes and what on earth they're doing to them in Cardiff.
Isabel, in November of last year, Cardiff was named the UK's third greenest city. But in the same month, Next Bike revealed that the... Yes, in November of last year, Eamonn and Isabel, Cardiff was named the UK's third greenest city. But in the same month, Next Bike revealed they were suspending their sustainable transport bike sharing scheme after a private investigator found that over half of the bikes here were either stolen or damaged. Now, at the time, Next Bike warned that the scheme may well not come back if the situation hadn't improved. But as you said, they also found that the damage and theft here in Cardiff was worse here than anywhere else in the UK. But 2 months on, Next Bike have said that they're making a comeback, meaning that checkpoints like the one behind me will be full of bikes once again. So there's going to be 11 new e-bike stations installed across the city, with meaning that over 900 bikes are going to be installed over the next 2 months. There's going to be a lot more bikes than there was previously, so this is quite a U-turn after last year when so many were taken away. There was kind of a mass cull of bikes here in Cardiff. They were piled up in front of Cardiff Castle, ready to be taken away, and Next Bike were definitely proving a point and making a stand, saying that we're taking this service away from you because of all the theft and damage damage that they've seen, particularly in the city. But now Nextbike is saying that they're working with young people and youth services, as well as the police here in Cardiff, to make sure that young people start to value cycling here once again.
Thanks, Lily. Thank you very much indeed. With that, we'll go to the break. Prince Harry demanding police protection, claiming he is unsafe without it. Is this another Sussex demand too far, or is he absolutely right? Because he says he'll pay for it.
See you in a bit.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Big story that broke yesterday and making all the papers today. That is Prince Harry threatening legal action against the government over its refusal to issue him and his family with UK police security whenever he is back in the country.
So lawyers for the Duke of Sussex insist he would not and could not return to the UK without it, as it would not be safe to visit with only private bodyguards. Well, let's bring in Professor Anna Whitelock. She's a historian of the monarchy and she joins us now. Very warm welcome to the programme. Always lovely to see you. Look, he's got a point, hasn't he? He came back last summer to unveil a statue of his mother, and he was reportedly chased by paparazzo down the street afterwards in a very familiar way that obviously is the way he lost his mother, and he's worried about bringing his young family over to endure the same circumstances.
Absolutely. I mean, his argument, and of course the couple also made a similar point in their Oprah Winfrey interview, is that just because he's stepped back from official duties, he's still a high-profile member of the royal family, and the threat to him hasn't changed. His argument is that although he has privately funded security in the US, that wouldn't have the jurisdiction in the UK or access to intelligence material, and therefore he's at risk. But of course, the way that this is perhaps going to be presented in the press is another demand from the Sussexes. They're trying to have their cake and eat it. They're not part of the official working royal family, but they want protection. That said, Harry is saying he would pay for it himself, but that he does need the UK security services to protect him. So it makes for another bad morning of reading for the Queen, of course. And there is a prospect that there will be court proceedings involving another royal, Prince Andrew, of course, last week, much more significant and serious accusations. But here, Harry is arguing for a judicial review, which is essentially a court proceeding challenging the decision by the Home Office not to give him protection. And what that amounts to is a member of the royal family essentially taking Her Majesty's government to court.
Has it ever happened before?
No, not to my knowledge. I mean, it's just there's always some new iteration of royal family drama, and this is the latest one. It's, it's unedifying. And of course, the personal story is that Harry wants to come back to what is his home. His young daughter, Lilibet, has never met her great-grandmother. And so it's a bit of a standoff at the moment. And, certainly those against Harry and Meghan who don't have much sympathy just say it's another of their unreasonable demands. But others will say, this is Harry's home. He's offering to pay for it. So should we just not, deal with it so that he can come home and see his great-grandmother?
I mean, if he's offering to pay for it, what is the reasoning behind denying him that protection? Is it because it's not just about money? I mean, it will divert resources away from things that will benefit from the taxpayer. So it's not just, I'll cover the bill. It's, as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he is now sort of officially a private citizen, although he, of course, is part of the royal family. And, the argument is that you can't simply, as an individual, just sort of demand protection, even if you are prepared to pay for it. And doubtless there would be some arrangement for his privately funded security firm, to give the protection that the government would argue is necessary and is sufficient. But Harry's saying, no, it's not. So we're at a bit of an impasse at the moment, and it will be the decision of the legal process to decide whether, in fact, his claim and his argument is valid or not, and therefore whether it should go to judicial review.
Well, you can see, Professor, that his security detail, they wouldn't be able to draw arms for a start. They wouldn't have access to very sensitive, MI5 type material as well. And the fact that he said, look, just give me the detail, I will pay for it, it seems quite unreasonable to refuse him, one would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't, of course, the Queen refusing him. This was a decision made by the Home Office. But, yes, he's saying, I come to the UK, I don't have access to security intelligence that I would if the police were covering me. And his representative says, look, he remains sixth in line to the throne. He's served in Afghanistan. His family have been subject to neo-Nazi extremist threats. There's been racist comments and slurs made against Meghan. That his role within the institution as sixth in line to the throne hasn't changed. He's still a member of the royal family, and so the threat to him hasn't changed.
OK, so if he loses this judicial review and he's unsuccessful, do you suspect he will still come in the summer and just won't bring his young family?
Well, that's possible. That's very possible. I mean, I think, of course, we're going to see Harry return to the UK at some point. But yes, he might say he just doesn't feel safe for his family to travel. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Interesting.
OK, Professor Anna Whitelock, historian of monarchy. Thanks for your time and your insight and your analysis today. Thank you very much indeed. With that, we are going to take a break. And we're talking about Airbnb owners who may need to acquire a licence to offer their homes as holiday lets due to fears that locals are being driven out of the area. That and the newspaper review after this.
Could releasing cash from your home help fund a better retirement? Find out how much you could release with Key's free online calculator. Key, equity release that's right for you.
My word, Money Super 7, that was a close one. But you two were in and out of there in no time. And you saved Sarah an impressive £327 on a new credit card.
The Money Super 7, helping Britain save on credit cards and so much more. Super Save with Money Supermarket.
Looking for a great car finance deal? Smile Car Finance can help you whatever your circumstances. And right now we'll give you up to £1,000 towards your finance deposit. Get a decision in 60 seconds. We'll even settle your existing finance. We've already helped thousands of people buy their next car. We'll help you too.
This is Smile Car Finance, UK.
Car finance with a smile.
Each day, we breathe in millions of viruses, which can lead to cold symptoms. Clean your nose every day with new Bakewell Cleanse. 100% seawater and rich in minerals, it cleanses away viruses and helps protect against winter symptoms. Help protect yourself with new Bakewell Cleanse. And to relieve nasal congestion, try Bakewell Cleanse Plus. Available in store or online.
Your road to worry-free motoring starts here at Bassett Citroën. If you receive a higher rate mobility allowance, like one of these, you could exchange it to lease a car like the Citroën C4 on the Motability scheme. Insurance, maintenance and breakdown cover are all included in the price. The Citroën C4, available from nil advance payment from Bassett Citroën.
Welcome back. The time is 6:32. The headlines this hour. The energy price cap could rise by more than 50% this April to around £2,000 a year, a rise that could cost average households around £700 per annum. Good Energy boss Nigel Pocklington says the government has a burning deadline in the next 3 weeks to decide how to offset the massive rise. Ofgem will announce the new price cap level in February, which comes into effect in April. Campaigners are urging Norway's state pension fund to pressure cladding firms and builders to fix fire safety issues. Grenfell's survivors affected by the cladding crisis are calling on Norges Bank to pull £5.7 billion of funds from companies if they fail to do so. As we've been discussing this morning, Prince Harry's filed a claim over police protection after his concerns for his family's safety grow. The Home Office decided not to allow him to personally pay for personal security for himself, Meghan, Archie and Lilibet whilst visiting the UK. The Duke wants to fund the security himself rather than ask the taxpayer to foot the bill, a legal representative for Harry has claimed. The Culture Secretary has indicated the BBC licence fee will be axed. In a tweet, Nadine Dorries said the next announcement about the fee is set to be the last. The yearly payment is expected to be kept at the current rate of £159 until April 2024.
And it's coming up to 25 to 7. Thank you for your company on TV and on radio. We're going into what's happening with the papers today. Delighted to be in the company of broadcaster Aggie McKenzie, who's been cleaning this shelf that we're sitting beside all morning. Do you still clean?
Not professionally, but personally, yes. And you know what? I must say, it's very clean and tidy in here.
Very clean and tidy.
Looks like
it's the way I have it.
Vacuumed.
You may remember Aggie from all those years ago on How Clean Is Your House. Is that what it was called?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Well done.
A man who always works in a clean environment. We welcome NHS doctor, Dr. Nathan Spence. Nathan, very good to see you as well.
Good morning.
One of the few days, Nathan, that there's not much COVID stuff in the papers today. There's a reduction again in what is it? What do you call it? The immune time or whatever that you have to stay isolated for.
Reduce the isolation period again today, but it's strangely absent from the front pages, as you say.
Yeah.
Some other stories I think are dominating this morning.
Is that something that would worry you, the shortening of that isolation period?
I think if it's done based on science, then absolutely it's okay. If it's done for political reasons, probably not okay.
Let me ask you something. We see these death rates every day and the infection rates and whatever, which are announced on the news. I mean, the way you work, and you work as a doctor in the southeast of England, do you ever see someone passing away and their death certificate saying COVID when you honestly believe COVID wasn't the main cause of death?
So I think there's often a confusion there. So the death certificate won't ever say an incorrect thing. So the death certificate will not say COVID if the patient did not die of COVID. I think where the confusion comes is there are some people who are dying with COVID and get picked up in these statistics of people that die within 28 days of a test, but their death certificate will not say they died of COVID, but they died with COVID.
Died with COVID, OK. You didn't know that, did you?
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, Aggie, very interesting for you. The Conservatives have launched this new campaign. They're calling it Operation Red Meat to appease backbenchers. And what have you picked up from? This is the Times front page.
Yes, it's one of a number of measures taken by the PM to take the focus away from Partygate, evidently, as far as I can see.
Is that the way you see it?
An attempt to save his premiership, I think. So this is, it's pretty drastic. Actually, apparently last year, the government tried to do the same thing. About so putting the Navy in charge of all government vessels in the Channel as, you know, an attempt to stem the flow of illegal immigrants.
So what, the Navy then scoops them up, never lets them set foot on British shores and brings them somewhere? How does it work?
Well, I think the plan is to bring them to the UK and then...
Process them?
Fly them in their hundreds to either to a country such as Rwanda or Ghana for processing and resettlement.
Right.
This is the plan.
Well, that would please a lot of people.
It would please an awful lot of people. It would be very interesting to see how this would actually pan out. It sounds like it sounds like a very grand plan to me. No doubt it hasn't been thought through very much at all. It sounds like a sort of a knee-jerk reaction to what's been going on in the last week or so.
OK. Nathan, you've taken the Sun, front page from the Sun, and it's about this Prince Harry protection or lack of protection, as it may be.
Yes, this evolving story today, isn't it, that Prince Harry is sort of requesting the police's help with his protection when he comes to the UK, and the government currently saying that they won't help, and the Queen's now getting involved as well. I find this quite ethically difficult, you know. I think it's a bit of a grey area for me. I mean, he wants to be a private citizen and has claimed to be such, but he's always going to be the Queen's grandson, isn't he? And he's always
sixth in line.
Exactly. He's an heir to the throne, and he would be a political target. If anyone wanted to make a statement, he would be under threat. So I think he does require protection, to be honest. But the idea of someone using money and status to get the police's help, and you or I couldn't ring up the police and say, I want to pay for a higher degree of protection than, say, the person beside me, doesn't sit well with people. So I think it's a grey area and it's quite difficult for me.
It is a grey area because, I mean, he's had it before. OK, stepped away from duties, he stepped away from the country and whatever, but he's saying, just give me back what I had and I'll pay for it.
But he did want to walk away from that. And one of his whole platforms of leaving the monarchy was, I don't like what the monarchy is, I don't like how we are above other people, we want to be completely separated from the royal family, but when it suits us.
Okay.
And I think that's what's annoying.
Aggie, what do you think on this?
Well, I think it's an interesting subject. I think that, you know, they've decided to, you know, leave the UK, be on their own, independently earn their own money, and they seem to be doing very, very well. So, I don't know. I don't have particularly strong views about it, actually.
So when he comes back, he's not really a royal. He's like a pop star, superstar. It could be like Beyonce or something like that coming back into the country. And if they had their own bodyguard with permission, that would be fine.
I would say so, actually. Yes, definitely.
Right. OK. Now, you're looking at the I newspaper, and we continue on this. You've talked about Operation Red Meat. This one's Operation Dead Meat. All of the measures that we're seeing in Red Meat, too little, too late for Boris Johnson to save himself or not?
No, it's never too late for Boris to save himself. The Tory party do not want him replaced. I think they'll go all out to try and save Boris. There's no obvious front runner to replace him. There really isn't. There's nobody actually who's out there who's obvious. And I think that, you know, he's got more trouble down the road. You know, Dominic Cumming, I'm sure, has got more stories to come out with. And he's also got Sue Gray's report to look at later on in the week. But, you know, he'll only be marking his own homework because it goes to him and he doesn't need to do anything about it.
No.
This report, does
OK,
he?
he is her boss.
That's right, he is her boss. And it's only going to be facts and findings. Not going,
are you outraged, and Nathan's a doctor, I'm going to come to him shortly with this, are you outraged by Partygate?
Am I outraged? I'm not surprised, actually, because Boris Johnson does as he likes. I'm not surprised. I've been enjoying all the stories, and the more the better. I think it's hilarious, actually. But it's also clear that Boris Johnson is not fit to govern.
Well, you say it's hilarious, but I know what you mean, but it's not I mean, when people die, it's not
No,
hilarious.
exactly.
Yeah.
No. I've just been enjoying.
ridiculous,
I've been enjoying the gossip, the stories, how the truth has come out. That's what I've enjoyed actually, and I think it's interesting how it's taken so long for this to happen, and then when it started, this momentum just got bigger and bigger.
Now, Nathan, from your point of view, you've had to work through this pandemic today. You're going back, you'll be on the wards by lunchtime today as well. How do you view the whole Partygate thing?
I can remember what I was doing on the day of the 20th of May.
Which was
2020.
what?
I was working on a COVID ward. I was comforting dying people, calling their relatives, telling them their mother, their father had died. And to know that that was going on at the same time is difficult to hear. And for me, when I look at leaders at work and who the people I look up to in my professional life, leaders lead by example, and leaders, do as they say, and they do as they do. And I think that what we have at the minute on both sides really is leaders not leading by example.
Right. We continue the COVID theme. Front page of the Metro you've chosen here, Novak Djokovic, finally deported.
What a roller coaster that's been. So he's gone to Dubai. I think he's on the plane back from Dubai as we speak. It's an interesting story, isn't it? So he is a man who didn't want to get vaccinated. The evidence of vaccines is very clear, and everyone should be getting vaccinated. But one of the cornerstones of medicine is autonomy. That is, you have a decision to make your own choices about your own body, your own health, and that's fine. But it's remember there are consequences to every decision we make. And the Australian government are very clear. You say, we don't want you to come here if you're not vaccinated. And they were worried about the public health message that would give if they sort of seemed to bend the rules for a famous tennis player. And they stuck by their guns and they deported him.
Do you think they were right to stick by their guns? I mean, this was a public health, this was an example. They made an example of him and said, look, these are our rules, you have not kept to our rules and you're not going to benefit by not keeping to them. Do you think that was the right thing to do?
I think it was. Australia are in a very different phase of the pandemic to us. So they are suddenly they have a sudden surge of cases that we had many years ago. They're having it now. Yeah. So there's a real fear there at the moment. And at the moment, they can't be seen to be bending the rules for anybody, let alone a famous tennis player. I think they did the right thing.
Aggie, the BBC and its future. The Culture Secretary saying this will be the last charter they will get. It could be all over for the BBC in about 5 years or so, or certainly not the BBC that we know. What do you think? Do you think this is a deflection strategy again? Or
I think it would be an absolute tragedy if this happens. Because the government doesn't like the journalism that the BBC puts out, it thinks, right, we'll just get rid of it. The problem is, actually, it's not just the BBC who publish as stories, anti-government stories. The Tory press is doing the same at the moment, so it's not just the BBC. And also, I think it's very interesting to note that the BBC it's a national treasure, isn't it? Apparently, 8 out of 10 of the most watched programmes over Christmas, on Christmas Day, were from BBC One.
Right.
And 141 million programmes streamed on iPlayer between the 27th of December and 3rd of January, BBC programmes.
But I suppose a lot of our viewers will say, fine, I was one of those viewers, but what their problem is, they believe they're not getting an impartial news service.
They certainly are getting an impartial. This is the whole joy of the BBC, I think. I think the journalists of such high quality, the fact that the world service is broadcast to millions of people throughout the world, and this is the only form of news they're getting. I think the BBC is beyond reproach. I really do.
Okay. We'll leave it there. Aggie McKenzie, thank you. Dr. Nathan Spence, they'll be back in an hour's time. And now let's go to Isabel to talk about Airbnbs.
Indeed. Second homeowners looking to list their property on Airbnb may need to apply for a licence, as fears are growing that they're pricing locals out of popular holiday spots. A proposal to introduce this measure is being considered by ministers, but the question is it necessary? Well, here to help us find out is Kurt Jansen. He's director of the Tourism Alliance. That's the trade association for the UK tourism industry. Kurt, very good morning to you. Is that correct then? Do you think that these licences are the answer to this problem?
We don't. We're lobbying at the moment for the government to introduce a registration scheme scheme, which is much different from a licensing scheme. A licensing scheme, you apply, you have an application in, and someone gets to decide whether you can operate a business or not. With a registration scheme, there is an implicit assumption that you can actually undertake the business, so you are just telling your local authority, for example, that you are undertaking this type of business in this type of place.
OK, so slightly different approach then, but you still see Airbnb as effectively driving out locals in holiday hotspots?
Kind of yes and no. There's been a lot of financial advantage in opening a small business. What has happened is that the government has had a bit of a loophole in that if you had a second home or a holiday home, you could apply to put that home onto business rates, and through small business rates relief, you could avoid paying council tax or business tax. And that's totally wrong. What we want to see is a distinction between real tourism businesses that put revenue and put jobs into local economies, because the average self-catering property brings in about £35,000 to a local community and provides about kind of 0.75 of a job. And it's great for local communities, especially in rural seaside destinations where there isn't much in the way of other industry or businesses. But holiday homes are quite distinct from that. An average holiday home will only bring in about £6,000 a year to a local community. It kind of stops anyone else from living there, and also just doesn't contribute to the local community. So getting a distinction between proper professional businesses that contribute to an economy and holiday homes which don't contribute to a local economy is an important thing to do.
A very important distinction, I would argue. And I suppose a lot of people watching this might think that perhaps then the licensing approach has got this wrong, because, again, we're also hearing many people who rent out their properties through Airbnb actually do it whilst they're still in residence. It's as an extra room or an outbuilding, and it's a lifeline of income for many of them.
Yeah, there is kind of two different parts to kind of Airbnb's host community as well. There are the people who are adding to their income and kind of meaning that they have a little bit of more discretionary income, which is great. But there are also professional operators in the field as well. People who own multiple properties, professional landlords who have decided that actually they can make more money by hiring, renting out places to tourists rather than renting them out on long-term lease to local people, and that's a real problem. If you look at the numbers for London, for example, there's about 80,000 properties listed on Airbnb, and over 50% of those are listed by people who have multiple properties and are letting out an entire property to a person. So those are properties being taken away from local residents and turned to tourist accommodation. So that's kind of not what Airbnb started with, but that's where they've ended up, because obviously the model's been so successful.
Interesting to talk to you. Kurt Jansen, Director of the Tourism Alliance, thanks very much.
Thank you.
So the Christmas sales data from major UK retailers has come through, and it's confirmed that online shopping is here to stay. In recent days, Tesco's, Lidl, Aldi, Next and Morrison's have all credited better than expected profits to record smashing e-commerce sales. Let's now go to retail expert Payal Hindocha, who joins us now to actually tell us about this sales boost and why sales are still booming, Payal.
Thank you for having me. Yes, online sales and the growth and the trend in online sales, we don't see slowing down anytime soon. In fact, from what we've seen in the holiday period, that trend is here to stay. People are now more comfortable shopping online. It's also more convenient for them. But at the same time, they still prefer and also miss that in-store experience. So really, the change in consumer shopping behaviors, they want a convenience of both sides, meaning being able to shop online as well as in-store.
So what did we do differently online during the pandemic?
I think online, or even in store, I think what we did differently was we saw the convenience of how easy it was to browse something online, buy something online. Alternatively, we saw how easy it was to browse something online, book something online, and go and collect it in store. So I think as consumers, we've realized how easy it is to use digital channels and how easy it is to use different channels of communication to contact retail brands.
Lots of businesses will be pleased with the results of their Christmas sales then, but will be looking to the first quarter of this year to see if they can build on that. Was it just a sort of festive uptake, or do you think that they can make that last?
I think they can certainly make it last if they understand who their customers are, understand what is it they're in the market for, and really use things, contextual relevance of communications to really know their customers. I think they can start building that relationship with the customer who bought something from them for the first time over the holiday period and get to know them. And instead of the customer just buying something which they otherwise didn't intend to buy, really get to understand who that customer is and be there for them when they're in the market to buy something.
How important, Payal, is it to be able, once you've bought something, to return it if you don't like it?
So that's a really great question. Almost 50% of us actually return something in store from what we either bought online or from a gift that we received. And I think from a consumer's perspective, being able to easily return something, whether that's going to be in store or whether that's going to be at the post office. I think it's one of those make or break situations from a consumer perspective with the relationship with that retail or that retail brand, is really giving that consumer an easy returning experience, because sometimes that could be the first interaction that consumer has with that brand.
Payal Hundocha, thank you very much indeed. She is a retail expert. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get you up to date with what else is happening news-wise.
Police are searching for a missing Berkshire woman last seen leaving a nightclub in Windsor in the early hours of Sunday morning. Marnie Clayton is described as white with a slim build and with brown hair. Her family say her disappearance is out of character. Thames Valley Police have urged anyone who sees her to call 999.
Funeral costs have dropped for the first time in 18 years after funeral homes were ordered to display clearer price lists for bereaved customers. With the cost of living going up across the board, people arranging funerals are looking to keep costs down by spending less on flowers or choosing a cheaper coffin. The pandemic meant that the cheapest option, a cremation without a service, rose hugely in popularity.
Millions of Britons are now drinking up to 50 units of alcohol a week. It's another sign of the long-term effects of locking the country down, as the rise in harmful drinking can be partly blamed on people drinking at home more often. The Royal College of Psychiatrists said the switch to at-home drinking means sessions last much longer than they would at the pub. Interesting. Wonder if Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer are reading that with interest this morning. I definitely think my household got into a habit of having daily drinks, more so during lockdown 1 than we had done in the past, and it took a bit of habit changing, but it's been a while since then. But that first lockdown was exceptional. We had the lovely weather, but also that crazy uncertainty about what was going on. I had the kids at home, so I needed a drink by about 5 in the afternoon.
You have got a drink problem.
I'm actually doing dry January.
One mouth, that's a problem.
I'm doing dry January, so I clearly don't have a drink problem.
Are you going with dry January?
This weekend, I really wanted a drink, and I did try and persuade my husband to break dry January. And I said, come on, let's just go to the pub and have a glass of wine. But he kept me strong. But I feel great for it. I'm really enjoying it in that sense. I'm waking up, despite the early mornings, feeling better. And I'd only have 2 glasses max of an evening normally.
Well, any tips you want to share with us, we'll be glad to receive them and pass them on to everybody at home. GBviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GBnews.
Yeah. Coming up, we know Boris was on the beers during lockdown. Was Keir too? We'll be getting to the bottom of that. But first of all, here is your Monday forecast. Well, looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold to start, but plenty of fine and dry weather for most. So let's take a look at the details.
Across the southwest, any early mist and fog patches will clear this morning. leaving a fine and dry day, feeling cooler than yesterday with a high of around 10 Celsius.
Cold this morning in southeast England with some isolated mist and fog at first. This will clear to leave a dry and fine day.
Chilly this morning for Wales, though there will be plenty of sunshine, so very little cloud cover, a cooler day than yesterday, a high around 9 Celsius.
It's a cold start to Monday across the Midlands, though it'll be a fine, dry and bright day with some patchy cloud in the west at times, highs of 8 Celsius.
After a cold start across northeast England, it'll be dry and bright with plenty of sunshine, feeling a touch cooler than yesterday, high of around 7 Celsius.
A dry and fine morning across southern Scotland with plenty of sunshine and some patchy cloud, windier and cloudier further north with a chance of patchy rain in the west.
In Northern Ireland, cold and frosty start, mist and fog. That will lift though throughout the morning to leave a dry and bright day with plenty of sunshine. And also plenty of sunshine this afternoon, though mist and fog will readily form across England and Wales this evening. And there you go. That's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day on this Monday. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello there, very good to have you on board. It's 7 o'clock, Monday the 17th of January. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with me, Isabel. No, I'm not Isabel.
That's made me laugh.
It was an accident.
Oh
It happened,
dear,
wasn't it?
It's not. This is you. I've got the giggles now. Sorry with Eamonn.
She's Isabel, you may not have guessed that, and I am
me
Eamonn.
laugh.
And we are live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, we're on your radio, and you could be watching us. Tell us where you're watching us. You could be
Yes.
watching in Blackpool, you could be watching in Swansea.
Or listening.
Listening, or maybe you're watching us in County Armagh. Let us know wherever you are and all the various ways that you have to be able to be with us.
Coming up this morning, Sir Keir Starmer is under pressure to apologise after he was pictured drinking with colleagues during lockdown last year. We want to know what you think.
Boris Johnson accused of attacking the BBC to divert attention from the Downing Street lockdown parties after the Culture Secretary, Nadine Dorries, signalled the licence fee will be scrapped after 2027.
Do you think this is enough to save the PM's skin? We'll be joined by the Shadow Culture Secretary this hour to get her views.
Prince Harry is in a legal fight to pay for police protection in Britain. What do you think about that? You can join in on that or any of the discussions we're having by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews.
Well, the inbox is overflowing this morning. We were talking in the last hour about the BBC licence fee freeze and possible abolition as a state-funded organisation by 2027 if Nadine Dorries has her way. Let's take a look at what people have been saying.
Jackie P. We knew the licence fee was going to be looked at as millions have stopped buying it, which is illegal if you have a TV, of course. And it's no longer fitting that it is compulsory. They are no longer neutral and cannot carry the name BBC.
Jenny Holland says, why should I pay £159 for just the BBC? I pay for Sky, for thousands of channels, Netflix for Prime, Apple TV, Disney+. I don't even watch the BBC now. I've switched to You as my news channel. So again, why should I still pay? And to be fair, I did have a think about this, and I can't remember the last time I watched anything on the BBC. But it's that old argument, we talk about it with the High Street as well. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And would it be a shame to lose it?
Well, I feel very strongly that the BBC is there in everybody's area and everybody's region, reflecting local news, giving jobs to local people. And other stations don't do that. Your Apples don't do that. Your Netflix don't do that.
Exactly. A lot of American stuff coming in from those organisations.
That's right. They are American companies. And all the things that people fear that the BBC's doing, you think they're not doing it in America. They think they're not exporting it here. When you look at how things are cast and how things are...
Well, the woke
history
messages
is told,
are
woke
coming,
messages everywhere. You know, the BBC's not your only problem there, I would have thought.
Ben Johnson completely agrees with you, Eamonn.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he says, regarding the BBC, be careful what you wish for regarding the licence fee. Keep those thoughts coming in. We do love to hear what you think. It is very important to our show. And do send in videos as well. We'd love to get some of your videos on air.
Look, we're talking about something called Operation Red Meat in the newspapers today, and the theory is this distracts Conservative voters from the Partygate scandal, and the idea is that it will win back voter trust.
For example, here, PM accused of attacking the BBC to save his own skin. So this BBC story being a red meat story.
Well, apparently they have a right good time in number 10 and associated buildings there. And the idea is now that Boris will say, nothing to do with me, but I'm going to ban booze for everybody else in number 10. And I'm going to have a pledge to bring in the military to combat the migrant crisis. Now, that would probably go down quite well, I would have thought.
But the question is whether or not he's bringing in these policies for the national interest, or whether he's bringing them in, the Prime Minister, to try and appease his backbenchers to stop them triggering a vote of no confidence.
Surely not, Isabel.
Cynic in me makes me wonder. We will be asking somebody about this in a few moments' time, an ardent Boris Johnson supporter and Conservative. They'll be speaking.
We should also mention
shortly.
the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, caught with a beer in his hand as well, and he's now facing pressure to apologise for his antics in lockdown. So this is with Labour staff indoors in April. Let's go to Paul Hawkins. Paul's our national reporter, and he will tell us more on all of this, and indeed what else will be covered under Operation Red Meat, as it's known. Paul, good morning.
Yeah, morning, Eamonn. Morning, Isabel. I'll be honest, I can't help but have a little laugh when I hear about Operation Red Meat and the other one that's been reported in the press, Operation Save Big Dog. But we'll come on to that in just a moment. But yeah, this picture of Sir Keir Starmer, it's been republished. It was published last year, and it says that, or it was taken on April the 30th, during which time, in the picture, you can see him with 3 or 4 other people in a constituency office in Durham drinking a beer. That's all the evidence is at the moment. A picture of him drinking a beer taken through a window in a constituency office in Durham. Now, he says that they stopped for something to eat and then they carried on working. So they stopped, had lunch or dinner, and then they carried on working. No rules were broken, he says. There was no breach of the rules, no party. The rules at the time say indoor mixing between different households was not allowed except for work. And he's saying that the rules weren't broken, but several Conservative MPs are saying he should apologise for that and that he can't be seen to be calling out the PM on it when he's doing it himself.
Paul, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. OK. moving on.
Yes, let's bring in a voter whose faith Boris is looking to win back. Her name is Linda. She joins us from Wilmslow in Cheshire. A very good morning to you,
Lovely
Linda.
to see you, Linda.
Look, first of all, what do you make of all of this? You know, you voted for Boris. Lots of people like him. He's an affable, charismatic character. But is he a bit shambolic now for even you?
I do like Boris. I must admit, I think he brings a lot to politics. I do sometimes think he needs to get his act together. But I do think that all this Partygate business is very much a witch hunt against him. And somebody has got this information, sat on it for 20 months, and then thought, when the time is right, I will come forward with this. And it's all to do with discrediting Boris. Nothing to do with the moral issue of the case of people not being able to go into hospitals or care homes. It's all an act of revenge.
Well, it still doesn't make it right, I suppose, Linda. That's the thing. I'm just curious to know why you wouldn't be overly bothered by them telling us what to do but not doing it themselves. Why does that not overly bother you, whether it is an act of sabotage or not?
I didn't say I wasn't overly bothered. I am concerned. But I don't think Boris is the only one that has broken lockdown. I think people need to be very careful what they're accusing other people of whilst they're doing it themselves. I never said I was bothered. I think it's terrible that people cannot see relatives, dying relatives or elderly relatives in care homes and in hospitals. That's shocking. It is shocking. I work in a care home, so I know firsthand what it's like. But I didn't say that I wasn't overly bothered.
Yeah.
I think people have got to look at the bigger picture on this. But I do think, I'd say again, I think this is an act of revenge, and whoever has had this information is not bothered about the morality of the case. They thought they would sit on this. When the time is right, they would come forward, and it's all to discredit the government and Boris in particular.
Well, Linda, many people watching this will agree with you and will share your views. My question is really whether or not there is anything that Boris Johnson would do that would bring you to call for him to go. There are so many people, it seems to me, who will permit him to do anything.
I'm terrified about the alternative, to be honest. And probably that's what keeps me voting for them. I do think they have the right ideas. I don't think Mr. Starmer has any clear policies. I would be very unhappy at the thought of Angela Rayner anywhere near the seat of power.
But it doesn't have to be the Labour Party. I mean, it could be another Conservative leader, somebody like Jeremy Hunt or somebody like Rishi Sunak. How would you feel about some of those contenders taking over from Boris Johnson?
Well, Jeremy Hunt is pro-Europe, and I'm not. I'm not sure what Rishi Sunak thinks about Europe, but he's untried, untested, and I think we've got to hold strong and back Boris. This is a setup, I think, primarily by the BBC, who loathe him for Brexit, and I think that's what's at the back of all this.
One of the big problems there, I mean, you know, obviously we've got COVID, we've got the economy, we've got people's health. We've also got the migrant crisis, Linda. Not an easy one, of course not an easy one to be solved, or it would be solved by now. Is it important to you?
I'm from an immigrant family myself, and it is important to me. I think the best thing Boris can do is to deploy the army. I think he has to have serious talks with France. And we will see how we go from there. I am concerned that we are housing migrants in hotels when we have military veterans and other people sleeping on our street.
But how can you be tougher on those people crossing the channel without endangering their lives, without being inhumane to them, without maybe even killing them?
I don't want people coming across in boats. I think it's not safe for them, and we're always told it is an issue of safety. But there are opportunities to enter this country legally, and I'm not sure why they don't take up those opportunities.
Okay, Linda, it's been really lovely talking to you. Thanks for getting in touch this morning, and I hope you feel better getting a few things off your chest there.
Well, we'll see, Eamonn. We'll see how it goes. Or should I call you Isabel? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. The next few days, this could all be fish and chip paper. We'll just have to see.
It's a make or break week for the Prime Minister, that's for sure. Linda, stay in touch. We'd love to check in with you and get your views as this story progresses and see how you think things are being covered in relation to all of this. Lovely to see you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, because it is GB News. It's your views on GB News. And Linda there from Cheshire, she's an example of that. Lovely to see her. Let's get up to date with the headlines. The time, 12 minutes past 7.
Two teenagers have been arrested and held in Manchester following an act of terror at a synagogue in Texas on Saturday night. Malik Faisal Akram, a British man from Blackburn in Lancashire, was shot dead by FBI after holding people hostage in a 10-hour standoff.
According to the Times, scientists are warning the Tonga volcano may erupt again. Earlier today, New Zealand sent a surveillance plane to Tonga to assess the damage after a huge underwater volcano erupted on Saturday, triggering a tsunami. The eruption has covered the Pacific Islands in ash, cut power and severed communications.
From today, everyone in England can now end their self-isolation period after 5 full days instead of 7. That's as long as people test negative on days 5 and 6.
Large outdoor public events such as football and rugby matches can take place again with fans as COVID restrictions in Scotland are relaxed. Rules were put in place on Boxing Day to limit the number of people who can attend to a maximum of 500. Restrictions on indoor sports are still in place.
Okay, now, are you one of those many families that during the pandemic decided that you needed a puppy? Well, many people did. They went out and bought them, and it was the thing to do. But now, many of these wonderful creatures have grown up a little bit, and despite being wonderful company, many are considering whether or not they need to be neutered. Let's talk about all of this now with an expert in the field, a dog psychologist, Stan Rawlinson, joins us now. Very warm welcome to you, Stan. Look, the vets...
Basically, we're talking about sending them for the chop. Stan, I have a rescue dog, and it was Dogs Trust policy to neuter the dogs before they leave the pounds, the rescue shelters. So basically, I haven't had to face what you're talking about. Having said that, I have a female dog, not a male. So what is the dilemma? Educate me. If the dog isn't neutered, what happens?
Oh dear, we don't have Stuart's audio there.
You're on mute, Stan. You're on mute. The Stan back with us there. Everybody panics when these things happen. Let's just see Stan. Let's see if he's going to press his button to unmute himself. Is he there? Let's see him.
You know what? Let's take a quick break. And after the break, we will go back to Stuart Rawlinson and talk about dogs being neutered. See you in a moment. Stan? I thought it was Stuart. It says in my notes, Stuart, but apparently it's Stan. So what you going to do? Sorry, Stan.
Blimey, Money Super 7. Your motorway shenanigans could have compromised our entire operation. But your leap of faith did save Dan an impressive £264 on his car insurance. And saved him £150 on the costs of running his car. Double whammy.
The Money Super 7, helping Britain save on car insurance and so much more. Super save with Money's Supermarket.
Hello, Sky. Play Sky Sports F1. Hello, Sky! Volume
The streaming TV from Sky, with 6 powerful speakers built in for Dolby Atmos sound.
This year, we're going even bigger.
Wow, that is big.
And it could be landing on your street. This year, there's a massive £220 million of prizes to be won.
Judy, tell them what they can win in the February draws.
Players in one postcode area will win a share of an incredible £7.9 million. Enter your postcode before midnight on the 20th of January to play.
The next door we knock on
Could be yours!
Wouldn't it be nice if switching mobile networks was this easy? It's that quick and easy. Sky Mobile. Hello, possible.
So Stan the dog man, Stan the dog psychologist, basically he's better with animals than he is
with tech.
With computers, yeah. So basically we're talking about neutering dogs. And Stan, as I understand it, you pulled out your cable for your microphone.
It was a headset, in actual fact, that I'd pulled out. I thought it may have been a little bit better, but then, of course, you couldn't hear me. But I
We've
do
all been
remember
there.
the question.
We've all been there,
We
Stan.
can now. So basically, when it comes to doggies, what should you be pulling out or not? Is it best to pull out or not?
Oh, gosh.
There's an enormous argument about neutering dogs. Neutering is a generic term for spaying and castration. Now, the problem with that, and a lot of people don't realise, by spaying and castrating dogs, you're taking away 3 major hormones. Those hormones are absolutely vital for quite a number of health requirements and behavioural requirements of dogs. For instance, there is estrogen, progesterone and testosterone are removed when we neuter our dogs. Neutering, by the way, is a generic term for spaying and castration. There is very, very good alternatives, and we haven't really looked at them. And the alternatives is very simple. It's called sterilisation, and it's what we do to humans. And it doesn't remove those hormones which cause the major problems in dogs. I'm an expert in aggression in dogs, and most aggression is fear-based. And one of the recommendations is always to neuter that dog if it is aggressive. It's quite the opposite, because what you're doing is you're removing hormones that have 2 serotonin uplifters. They uplift the mood. They also give confidence. By removing them from a dog that is fear aggressive, you're going to make the aggression more aggressive. It's going to be really make it incredibly worse than it was before. So there is alternatives, and we do rush towards neutering. And unfortunately, the veterinary profession in this country is about 30 years out of kilter with a lot of other countries. America is doing sterilisation now, but we have not. I know very few vets in this country that are doing sterilisation.
And just make the distinction, Stan, if you would, between sterilisation and neutering, because is sterilisation reversible, or is it, tell me why that isn't considered neutering?
Well, sterilisation is what we do to humans. So it's a vasectomy for males rather than a removal of the testicles. And yes, if you wanted to, you could reverse it, but you can't guarantee that there will be a reverse on that. And it's a hysterectomy for females rather than over-hysterectomy. Taking the ovaries away removes the hormones, taking the testicles away removes the hormones, and there's where the major problem is, and it's causing enormous behavioural problems. It's made me a good living over the last 50 years,
yes,
but I don't agree with it.
You're sorry you asked now, aren't you? So basically, Stan, where does that leave us? We're talking about people who in lockdown or at Christmas have bought themselves a pet, and basically that pet is a sort of coming of age for that pet. What is your advice? Psychology or surgery?
Okay, training and psychology, but where the problem has happened because of lockdown is socialisation, and people aren't aware that the first 16 weeks of a dog's life is a most important part for all training. We leave it too late. We're worried about vaccinations. We shouldn't. We should be socialising. There's two critical periods. The human socialisation period is 0 to 12 weeks. You need 100 people handling your puppy. Lockdown, it didn't happen. Guess what? People get frightened of, dogs get frightened of humans, children, older people and things like that because they won't socialise. If they don't meet with other dogs and other puppies, which is a canine socialisation period, which is 0 to 16 weeks, they do not feel comfortable around other dogs. And that's the problem.
But all of this socialising doesn't stop the fact that, I think of one of my best friends, she's the cliche, she got a puppy during lockdown, she's got 3 little girls, they went to the beach in the summer, it was a total nightmare, the dog was on heat, she was being pulled by the lead up and down the beach, she couldn't look after her toddler, every other dog in town was sniffing around, they were panicking about that, it was a nightmare, and she came back and we've got to get her neutered straight away, and also all the, coming into season was pretty nasty as well.
The neutering does stop the seasons. You're absolutely correct. But at the same time, if we've got other dogs that have been sterilised, males, they don't have that problem. The sterilisation will stop them having young. It won't stop the males trying to mount them, but nothing will happen. There is a way of sterilising dogs where they don't have the season as well. It is a bit more complicated, but there is a way of doing that.
OK, Stan, appreciate your insight to all of that. Thank you very much indeed. Too curious you were.
I know, too many questions. But I was genuinely interested. What are you supposed to do with
I tell you what you do. You go to the Dogs Trust and you adopt and you don't shop. And it's all done for you there and you get it oven ready.
Do you know what?
Basically.
You can't adopt a dog from the dog centre if you've got a child under the age of 7. So all of my friends that wanted dogs during lockdown were turned away because they don't know whether or not they've had an abusive history and they're at risk of harming children. I think I'm correct in saying that under the age of 7 you can't adopt a dog if you've got kids.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know you can't if you have a hole in your fence. Okay. You don't want it escaping.
No, of course, yeah.
Tell you, Will Hollis has escaped as well.
He has.
He's gone to Derbyshire in
Bakewell.
search of cakes and tarts and all sorts of things. And your views on your doorstep. Will?
Good morning. It's very excellent to join you from Bakewell in Derbyshire, a town that's famed for its confectionery, for its sweet treat, the Bakewell pudding, created here in Bakewell in Derbyshire. There's a lot of other reasons to be excited about Bakewell today. It's a very exciting day in particular because, as you can see just in the background, it is, of course, Market Day. What's a market town without a market day? And there's a lot of people that are getting ready. The market's going to open in just a few hours. So we are going to avoid a few of those people because I know that they're all very, very busy. But there is something that's very exciting. Over in the distance, the lights are on in Critchflow's farm shop. It's been in this position for about 30 years or so, serving the Bakewell residents as well as the Bakewell visitors. But it's been a shop for about 100 years, so I'm told. What I will say about this job when you're out on the doorstep, live on GBNews, on TV and on radio, is you do have to be really careful about where you're walking because at this time of the day, a lot of people are going to work and a lot of people are just getting around. So you do have to be a bit careful on Bridge Street. Here we are, though. Now, if I'm correct, there should be a chap in here called Darren Marsden, who's a trainee butcher, and he's one of Critchflow's best and brightest. Darren, how you doing? Do you mind if we just come in and we can have a little bit of a look at your sausages?
No problem.
Lovely. Let's squeeze on through here. It is freezing outside right now, but inside of this butcher's, it's actually quite warm. There's obviously all the refrigerators, everything's being kept cold. You've got your Cornish pasties by the look of it, steak pies. You've got your potato and meat pies, large sausage rolls. But we're not here to talk about your selection of butchered items. We're here to talk about the big stories of the day on your doorstep, live on GB News, TV and on radio. Big story that just doesn't seem to go away is Boris Johnson in these parties. Here in Bakewell, what do you think? What's the atmosphere in Critchflows around these parties? What about Boris Johnson?
Well, everybody's saying resign, but I think he just keep going. I think he should keep going. I mean, I was a fan when he was appointed as Prime Minister, but I think he should keep going, hopefully.
It depends on where you are, I think. Some places might be, get rid of him, resign. What's the general atmosphere here in Bakewell? It tends to be a Conservative area.
Yeah, everybody's saying, who comes into the butchers saying resign, so... Yeah, that's it, yeah.
It varies, really does. It's market day. Obviously, there's a lot of busy things going on in here in Bakewell. What does market day actually mean to the people that come into your butchers?
It's very busy on the market day, yeah, on the Monday. We get all the people from the market having sandwiches and pies, steak pies. We're famous for pork pies, large pork pies and sausage, yeah.
So it's not just the famous Bakewell pudding, the meat from Bakewell is also pretty good?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I mean, we're renowned for pork pies and sausages, and like my favourite's Welsh Dragon sausage, which is chilli leek and ginger. Yeah, my favourite.
It's one of these traditions, these jobs that seems to have been fading away. We've lost a lot of our butchers, we've lost a lot of our bakeries. The bigger shops tend to be where most people will go to get their food now. But what's the importance of having a local butcher on the high street, as it were, in Bakewell, where people can come and get really good quality food?
Yeah, it's a lot better than the supermarkets, really. Yeah, it's quality. Yeah, quality, not quantity, everybody says.
You've heard it here. It is about quality. There is a lot of quality here in Bakewell, and I do have a quality Bakewell pudding to show you in the next hour. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be at the old original Bakewell pudding shop, finding out about what makes this town and its confectionery so special.
What a tease. What a tease you are, Will.
Licking my lips already, Will. Yeah, good one. Thank you, mate. Thank you very much indeed. And it's a lovely part of the world.
It is. I've never been, but I'll take your word for it, and Will's word for it. It does look beautiful.
Yeah. Well, joining us now to go through the biggest sports stories. Let's switch to those now. Paul Coit, who is here this morning, as per usual. Rafa Benitez out of a job. It was looking likely for a while, wasn't it?
You know what? It almost could have been. You know what? I've got to say, though, with the dogs, I'm just looking at those two grapefruits in front of you, and it's making me wince. So I don't know if it's possible to move them to one side. I can't take my mind off the dogs.
If he said testicles once more, Isabel didn't know where to look there.
I know, Eamonn,
I was hoping I might be able to say it too, but I can't find any link with that whatsoever when it comes to the straw. Although I could move to Rafa Benitez then. And
why did it go wrong? I mean, obviously they didn't win enough matches, but there were new owners at Everton. And it looks like they may be going back to one of their old bosses.
Well, it's trying to work out why it's gone wrong. I mean, when it came in, I think there were some Everton fans that were, because of course there's the link with Liverpool. He was going his love for Merseyside, which obviously because he was the Liverpool manager, but he's come in. You know, he's got a good track record. I thought, why not? This could well work. But a lot of Everton fans were like, he can't manage us because he's been manager of Liverpool. But you do what you can. If he wins games, then it'll be all right. But it just never worked out.
You might still see him somewhere down the line at Newcastle.
Do you think so?
I think so.
Could well possibly happen.
I mean, you can't deny his pedigree.
Absolutely.
I don't know what he had to work with at Everton, but...
I don't know how Eddie Howe's going to start feeling about that, then, if his name gets bounded about.
No, but I'm just saying, I don't know how far down the line, but, I wouldn't be surprised.
It's just not worked out. It's just trying to work out exactly why. I mean, the record's been bad. I think they've lost 9 out of 12, which is no good. And then they go to Norwich, who can't buy a win. They haven't scored a goal in, I think it was 550 minutes. I mean, things were so bad at Norwich is that their fans were actually cheering when there wasn't even a goal just because they didn't get used to cheering any of the time, so they would just do it. And then Dean Smith was unhappy about that. But then they've beaten Everton, so it's like, how bad can it be? We've lost to Norwich. So he had to go. I don't think there was any question he had to go. So it's where do they go now?
Somebody else who had to go, Novak Djokovic, of course. It is finally all over. He flew to Dubai this morning. I think he's on his way now to Serbia with that. The thing I think is really harsh, though, is he will be banned for the next 3 years from entering Australia.
I don't think that will happen.
Yeah.
I have no inside knowledge about the whole thing, but I know that the 3-year ban goes along with someone being deported, so they go hand in hand. So automatically, there's that 3-year ban. He's not allowed back into Australia. So let's look in a year's time. Let's be hopeful that, as far as COVID's concerned, things are looking better. Are they really going to say, you've still got that ban from last year, you're not going to be able to come? Because he's going to be 37, 38 by the time he is allowed to go there.
Yeah.
I just think it's just gone along with the deportation order. So I don't think he'll be back for 3 years.
I tend to agree with you, my friend.
I think he'll be back.
Joe Root has said he will attempt to remain England captain despite the Ashes debacle. 4-0
He's
loss.
banned himself from Australia for 3 years. I think. Joe Root, that would make more sense, wouldn't it? It was just a debacle. It was just the worst batting collapse. I think it was since 1908. It was just so bad. It looked like there was a chance that we were going to win this test. We were bowling well. Mark Wood was looking good. Took 6 wickets. Then we end up with a fairly good first wicket stand, 68, and then they collapse. And it is just the worst collapse I think we've ever seen from an England side in recent memory. So where we go from here, Chris Silverwood, the coach, looks like he may be out. Ashley Giles, who's the managing director, he may fall on the sword. Joe Root says he wants to stay, but something has got to change there because it's not looking good. And they're going to the West Indies in a month or so as well. So
well, you know, they talk about players and their injuries and whatever it is. This man here dislocated his shoulder at the weekend and he's off the bench and he's playing today.
Yeah, you would not cancel it. If it was the Premier League, I'd still go ahead and play, even with the dodgy shoulder.
Did it hurt going back in?
You know what? I'm a very, very brave man. I don't like a big deal, but, oh, God, I was agony. It was agony, but I'm not wincing. I can take it.
Does it pop out all the time? People with dodgy shoulders do often...
You know what? 13 times I did it, had an op, and it was fine. I think the worst was swimming with dolphins, throwing a snail once over a wall, closing a door, waving to someone. It used to happen all the time. So then it got fixed, and then I did the stupid thing. I was out with the dog, who maybe should have had something done to him. There. So then I kicked the ball up in the air, landed on the shoulder. Not very dignified.
Slippery surface.
It was a slippery surface. Wrong footwear.
Yeah.
What can you do?
No studs.
But the ball went straight in the back of the net, by the way. I should let you know.
Right, we'll stay well, Paul.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. With that, we'll take a break. Coming up, can the Labour Party defend itself against pictures of Sir Keir Starmer? What was he doing, Isabel?
He was seen drinking beers with staff during lockdown. This is the very thing he's accused the Prime Minister of doing. We'll be speaking to Lucy Powell, who will no doubt try to defend him. She is the Shadow Culture Secretary. That's after this.
Dry or chesty cough? Wondering what type of cough you have? Try BronchoStop. BronchoStop is used to relieve dry and chesty coughs. BronchoStop, to relieve any cough.
Look at this TV. They say it works like magic.
I must be under a spell, 'cause I can see
this way, my apprentice.
And I don't know what you've done here, but I can see it there when I close my eyes. I must be under a spell.
Transformio TV! Transformio TV! Let's see, Mario! Abracadabra! Hello! Kazam! Hello, Sky?
Sky Glass. No dish, no box, just magic.
After my medical mistake, it felt like I'd lost so much. I wondered how I'd ever get back on my feet and be able to look after my family. Now I know.
Patient Claimline are specialist medical negligence lawyers. Call now or visit patientclaimline.com. Know for sure.
Right, mate.
Thanks.
What's that, mate?
It's the Raging Bull Biltong.
Well, give us some then. Yeah, that tastes lekker, my bro.
You what? You slug. You're not wrong, my bro.
Award-winning biltong with South African soul. High in protein and low in carbs and sugar. Visit ragingbullbiltong.com and enjoy 15% off.
Can we have some more of this Raging Bull Biltong?
Welcome back. The time is 7:36. Here are today's headlines. The energy price cap could rise by more than 50% this April to around £2,000 per year, a rise that could cost average households around £700 extra per year. The Good Energy boss Nigel Pocklington says the government has a burning deadline in the next 3 weeks to decide how to offset the massive rise. Ofgem will announce the new price cap level in February, which will come into effect in April. The Prime Minister's reportedly been interviewed by Sue Gray as part of the investigation into Partygate allegations. The Telegraph says Boris Johnson has shared what he knows with the senior civil servant as she prepares to publish her report into Number 10 rule-breaking as soon as this week. Ms Gray is looking into several possible events, including a bring-your-own-booze garden party in May 2020. Campaigners are urging Norway's state pension fund to pressure cladding firms and builders to fix fire safety issues. Grenfell survivors affected by the cladding crisis are calling on Norges Bank to pull £5.7 billion of funds from companies if they fail to do so. 16 and 17-year-olds are now able to get a COVID booster jab from today, with 40,000 teenagers now eligible. Clinically vulnerable 12 to 15-year-olds who are most at risk from coronavirus will also be able to get a top-up dose. The Culture Secretary has indicated the BBC licence fee will be axed. In a tweet, Nadine Dorries said the next announcement about the fee is set to be the last. The yearly payment's expected to be kept at the current rate of £159 until April 2024.
OK, here with their second go at the newspapers this morning, Aggie Mackenzie, the broadcaster, and Dr Nathan Spence, who is an NHS doctor. Indeed, he will be on his wards by lunchtime, so we'll not keep you. He's a doctor in the southeast of England, and it's a medical story, Nathan, you want to deal with this time, related to dry January.
That's right. So this is a story both in the Mail and the Guardian this morning that's talking about how many units people are drinking a week. So millions of people drinking 50 units of alcohol a week, and for context, the NHS recommends 14 units a week. So a normal measure of gin is 1 unit, for example. So you can see how they quickly mount up. And this is blamed on the fact that people are drinking more in lockdown because they're a bit bored. It's cheap. There's no closing time when you're in your own house. And personally, for me, working over the past year, this is the unseen pandemic that's going to be emerging. The sort of effects of lockdown that aren't actually being realised yet. A lot of people coming in with alcohol-related problems, drug-related things as well. So this is going to be a huge cost to us in the next year that we're going to need to be thinking about.
The thing is, Nathan, I suppose people think they control their drink. They don't think they've got a problem. And they think, look, I just take, 1 or 2 drinks at the end of a hard working day or whatever, and maybe a bit at the weekend. When does it become a problem? Because I don't care what anyone says. No one understands what 50 units is or 14 units. So do you know what a unit is?
No, I think I'd choose not to know as well.
Right, OK, yeah, that's a fair point, actually. People like not to know.
I think that's a very fair point. And some of the screening questions we use for alcohol dependence are things like, do you get angry when people question your drinking? Do you need to have an eye opener in the morning? Do you find drinking earlier and earlier? Can you stop drinking? Can you say enough's enough? If those questions are starting to be, well, I'm not so sure, then that's when a bit of a habit can become a problem.
It's an interesting one, Aggie.
Don't look at me.
I'm thinking of a lot of people. I am blessed. I've never partaken of the devil's buttermilk.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then people look at you and you think there's something odd with him. There's something he can't control it or whatever.
That's amazing.
I've never really liked the taste.
Isn't that interesting?
I could have a whiskey, and I said whiskey and ginger or something.
Oh,
and
really?
you know, and leave. I could take it or leave it, couldn't care less.
Amazing. Well, I just love alcohol, may I say. I do. I drink every day.
Do you love it too much, though?
Well, I don't have it during the day, and I don't know how dependent I am, but I do enjoy it. I love a few glasses of wine with my dinner.
I know people who literally lick their lips, and they're all women. They're all women. You know, I am not so much aware. Oh, there's Isabel waving a hand at me. I'm not so sure that men look forward to going home, licking their lips to have drink at home.
Maybe it's women who are living with men that need the alcohol.
Okay, got you there. In The Guardian, we're talking about chefs now and attitudes in kitchen. And indeed, this chef is called Tom Kitchen, and he's a Michelin star chef. What's he done?
He's been accused of bullying and physically assaulting some of his staff. It's coinciding with this new film that's out called Boiling Point. It's absolutely fascinating. I find this really interesting because one of my sons, well, both of my sons are chefs actually. One in particular was running a Michelin star restaurant.
Tough job.
Yeah, in the West End. And he found that actually this job was turning him into the sort of person he didn't want to be. Bullying, shouting at people, losing his rag all the time. I don't think he actually physically assaulted anybody, but he left in the end because he said it was awful, actually. He didn't want to be that person.
Does he not cook anymore?
He does cook. He's a development chef now, working sort of normal hours. But I think it's also something that happens in male kitchens. I think if you have a woman at the top, I think it's a whole different story.
Yeah. You know, I do sit and I have huge admiration because we all take it for granted. So there's 4 or 6 people at your table. And yet all the meals, however different they are, they arrive at the same time. We just take it that there's some sort of conveyor belt going on.
Yeah, sure, that's right. And also, if you're eating a restaurant that has 1, 2, 3 Michelin stars, they have a standard that they have to maintain all the time, so the pressure is in. You never know when you're going to have an inspector in, so always the pressure's on. And if the people underneath you aren't working at the same level as you, then you're going to get angry, and it's just not great. After all, at the end of the day, it's just a plate of food, isn't it? Let's face it. You're not saving lives in the way that Nathan is.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's true, although I do think, Nathan, when you look at the size of kitchens, and they're invariably very, very small, and I have huge respect for not only being a chef, but being a chef, if you're a chef, say, on a boat or a ferry or a train or somewhere where it really is like just Mission Impossible, really. Nathan, in the Express, 1 in 3, so there you are, 33.3% of British people, if they go to a map, they have no idea where Germany is.
Isn't it fascinating?
I don't watch Dad's Army, obviously.
Quite. So 1 in 3 people couldn't find Germany. 1 in 4 couldn't find France. And, you know, for a country so steeped in history, you know, we have World War I, World War II. We fought wars against these countries. We can't spot them on a map. And it got me thinking, you know, why is that? And it's a time, interestingly, where we are more connected than we've ever been. So we're on social media, Zoom calls, teleconferencing. We talk to people all over the world all the time. And, well, where are they? They're on our phone. We don't actually. It's becoming less relevant where they physically are located.
Yeah, we're more detached. I am very good geographically, knowing where places are. And you know why?
Why is that?
Football. Football. Because if you know where a football team is, you know a football team, usually you're that interested, you know exactly where Norwich is or where Dunfermline is or, you know, where Manchester is or wherever it happens to be. And I think that works quite well. And you apply the same thing, of course, to European football as well. So I'm quite good at that. What are you like?
I know where Germany is because I worked in Germany for a while. But generally speaking, I wouldn't be able to, you know, name all the countries in Africa. It would be very, very difficult for me to do that.
Okay, it gets tricky for you as soon as you get to Africa. OK, finally, Aggie, in the Telegraph, this is the high energy cost that everybody is facing. But you don't like the advice being given out by the energy firms. You just wish they would cut their bills.
I know. I mean, it's been insulting, hasn't it? You know, last week, OVO was advising people to cuddle their pets and eat porridge. And now Octopus is telling people to make yourselves a cup of tea or have some hot food. Well, you need to actually turn on the kettle and use electricity and energy to do that. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a serious problem for many, many people after April when the prices go up. And I don't quite know what the government's going to do about it. At the moment, there are just over 2 million households qualifying for the warm home discount. But I think that will probably have to be extended after April because it's going to be a big problem for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And not just people who are really poor at the moment, people who are earning, you know, a bit more money.
I know you talk about that silly advice and whatever it is, but over the back of our sofa there was always this big throw, and I would think, what the heck's that there for? And over the weekend, for instance, I used it, I put it over me, I was more comfortable. I didn't have to turn on the gas fire in any way. Sometimes I have the fire and air conditioning on at the same time because I like the look of the fire.
You just don't care about your bills, do you?
But I do now, and there are lights everywhere. And it seems to be I'm the only one that turns them off. But I do think there's a lot to be said for, you know, putting a jumper on or putting a blanket over yourself or whatever it happens to be. You know,
definitely.
If it is a choice between heating or eating, that's what you do.
Yeah, but there's also this other a firm that sent out thousands of pairs of socks to their customers. You know, that must have cost... Yes,
it's very insulting, I think.
Actually.
Yeah, but there you are. Well, may you two keep warm and you'll be back in an hour's time. We'll do it all again. Thank you. Thank you both very much indeed. Dr. Nathan Spence and Aggie Mackenzie there. Well, it's a week ahead of commuter hell as temporary train timetables are being introduced today on a number of services around the country. Some of those are running just one train in and out of London in an hour. It's down to COVID isolation rules and a lot of people working from home. Our South East reporter Ellie Costello has the details.
Well, today I'm outside Upminster train station in Essex, which is serviced by a C2C which runs along the south of Essex. And from today, it has a reduced timetable with a reduced number of trains running into London. And that is partly down to a staff shortage. They have lots of drivers and reception staff that are isolating with the Omicron variant. And it's also down to a loss of passengers. Lots of people are following government advice from December telling them to work from home where they can, and that means that fewer and fewer people are getting the train into their offices in London. And in some parts of the southeast, passenger footfall is down at 40 to 50%, so it makes it very difficult for these train companies to keep a full service running. So I spoke to Simon Calder, who's a travel expert, and I asked him why these train companies are running reduced services.
All the train operators are saying we are really worried about the number of passengers, and that I think is more important than the depleted staff numbers. And why would you run empty trains? That's the big question. They're already being subsidised by taxpayers to the tune of £1 million an hour. It's perfectly understandable that the train companies should want to align the services they run with the number of passengers they've got and the number of available staff. But the problem with cutting services is that you reduce the train offers maybe from once every half hour to just once an hour, and that puts more and more people off travelling by train. The only way that the rail industry is going to be rescued is by people leaving their cars, whether it's for work or for fun, just switching to the train instead, and you've got to make it an attractive option.
So that's Simon Calder there, who is a travel expert. And it's not just C2C who are affected. South Western have also got a reduced timetable that is out today. And Southern Rail, also in the southeast, has been in the press a lot recently in the past few weeks. They had a 2-week period of not actually sending any trains to London Victoria. And that again was due to a staff shortage due to COVID and a decrease in passenger numbers. And it's a pattern that we're seeing across the UK too. On Hull trains, they have temporary timetables until February the 12th. On Great Northern, they have a reduced service until further notice. Also reduced service on ScotRail, London North Eastern, London North Western, South Western Railway, as we just discussed, and West Midlands as well have got replacement buses and cancellations. So it does seem that anywhere in the country now you're more likely to have a delayed service or a less frequent service than you would have a normal one. It's definitely something that people are experiencing up and down the country. But what is happening today is that period of self-isolation for the Omicron variant is being reduced from 7 days, based on the fact that you've had 2 negative lateral flows, to 5 days. And there is the hope for these train companies that that will ease some of the staffing pressures, which has called for this reduced timetabling.
Ellie Costello reporting there for us. Now, the Shadow Culture Secretary, Lucy Powell, joins us. We're going to ask her this hour if there is a boozing culture in Westminster and if perhaps the left is just as guilty as the right. If the Daily Mail is to be believed, they're saying that Sir Keir Starmer needs to make an apology. Do you think he's a hypocrite for thinking it's OK for him to break lockdown rules, but it's not OK for the Prime Minister?
Good morning. No, he was very clear about what happened there. He was working, he was campaigning, he was in a constituency office of a colleague, calling, having been out on a visit, and they broke from making those phone calls. They broke to have something to eat in the kitchen and then went back to work. And I don't think you can compare that in any way at all from the industrial scale, the wide culture of regularly and in a preemptive way, with invites, with trestle tables being put out, with wine fridges being stocked up, the industrial scale of partying gatherings that we saw, that we've seen through in Downing Street, and also the cover-up and lies that we've seen subsequently in not fessing up about that. I think if the Prime Minister had said a few months ago, look, we were busy working, we broke away from working, and we gathered in the garden and we had a glass of wine, we went straight back to work, I think maybe he might have probably would have, people would have been okay with that. But, you know, the fact is that we've just had allegation after allegation, many of which have been admitted to, apologies then coming later on after the Prime Minister had lied about what had gone on earlier on. And I think that's why he's now lost that authority and lost that trust of the public to continue governing.
I mean, a lot of people will just see it, you know, as a blanket thing right across Westminster, seeing that there is this photograph, very zoomed in, of Keir Starmer, as you say, at a work thing, but having a drink. I mean, at PMQs on Wednesday, will he be able to challenge the Prime Minister, given all of this has gone on?
Absolutely, he will. And I think, look, this is a tactic we've seen before from this government, is trying to tar all of us, all politicians, with the same tawdry brush that the Prime Minister has tarred himself and his colleagues with. And that's why his colleagues are so particularly cross with him as well, because, you know, the vast majority of parliamentarians, like the vast majority of the public, you know, we all went to great lengths to ensure that we were following the rules, and we went to great lengths at a great personal sacrifice, like everybody else did as well. And so, no, we're not all going to be tarred with the same brush, because that's not what's happened here. What we've seen is, right at the heart of government, the people who are setting the rules, the people who are making the rules, were systematically and frequently, at best, pushing the boundaries of those rules, but clearly on occasion were breaking those rules by their own admission. On an industrial scale frequently, and have then spent months and months trying to lie and cover up what they were doing. And you know, I think that's just why now people have just had enough of the Prime Minister. And what we need is someone who can govern the country.
Lucy, I'm hanging on your every word, basically because I can't hear you. It might be my age, but if there's any way you could shuffle a bit closer to your microphone. Is it just me that can't hear Lucy very well? But I think this will be better. And I'm getting on to broadcast issues, because there you are, you're the Shadow Culture Secretary. Just looking for your reaction to the Culture Secretary, Nadine Dorris, announcing that the BBC has basically 2 more years to live, certainly in the form that we know it. And if you were in government, would you be a friend of the BBC and granted another charter? What's your thinking on that?
Well, we would be a friend of the BBC, yes. And you say announce it. She's not come to Parliament. She's not done all what you would expect with such a massive announcement of this. We're celebrating 100 years of the BBC this year as part of our broadcasting mix in this country. And the Culture Secretary has taken to Twitter to announce its end in the form that we know it. That's not an acceptable approach. And that's why it is, I'm afraid, from the new Culture Secretary, it is cultural vandalism, because she's ripping something up, she's smashing something up without any plan about how the BBC is going to survive and how it will continue to fund itself going forward. And of course, the BBC needs to reform and keep up with the changing nature of broadcasting like everybody else. But it does play a very special role in our country. It's a treasured British institution. It performs functions that wouldn't be commercially viable, like educating our young people, like the local radio, local journalism that it engages with, like the World Service that gives us so much soft power around the world. You know, these are really important and valued assets that we have in this country that we shouldn't just be trashing and burning.
I can hear you much better now, I have to say as well. But do you think that the Labour Party or parties that are left of centre get an easier time than the Conservatives from the BBC?
Well, no, I don't. I mean, the BBC irritates me as much as it would irritate any politician, because, you know, they hold us to task and they, like you do, you know, they interview us robustly and so on. But it's not our job as politicians to pass editorial judgment on the BBC. It's our job to, yes, provide that strategic framework. We're asking the BBC to make sure that it's part of this levelling up agenda, which it absolutely is. And we can see that here in Manchester and many other parts of the country, where it's spreading that opportunity, commissioning jobs right across the country, which, you know, an American kind of streaming company obviously just wouldn't do in the same way. We can require the BBC to make sure that it's got that very strong educational thread, that it's very committed to local journalism, that it's committed to the World Service, all these things that we get as a value added from the BBC that you wouldn't get in a commercial context. But we're not here, I don't think, as politicians in a democracy, to be acting as editor-in-chief of some of their flagship news programmes. And it feels to me like the Prime Minister is looking for anybody to blame but himself. And now apparently it's the fault of the BBC that he's in such hot water.
Well, Nadine Dorries would argue that this would help to tackle the cost of living crisis by freezing any increases to the licence fee bill. But I just want to read you this tweet from one of our viewers or listeners this morning, Tom O'Brien. He says, I find it interesting that some people think the only way the BBC can be funded is through a compulsory licence. That is, they can't get people to choose to pay for what they provide. My question then to you is, does a rethink need to be drawn up on how to fund the BBC rather than talking about getting rid of it at all?
Well, I think there's always a debate to be had about exactly what the funding streams are there for and how that should be prioritised. But look, we have had this debate that we have it all every sort of few years with the charter renewal. And I think the point is that if it was just a commercial outfit, then obviously the things that the BBC is particularly valued for, what makes the BBC so special, and what then supports the rest of the creative industries in this country, because it really is the sort of cornerstone to how we succeed so strongly globally on the creative industries, as we do, punching well above our weight, is because of many of the activities and the things that the BBC does which wouldn't be commercially viable, like the education programme, like some of its journalism, especially local journalism, like the World Service. All of these things just wouldn't be commercially viable. They wouldn't be what you would do if people were paying for it, and you wouldn't see the same kind of programming either, because those programs would be just engaged in a kind of ratings war. So it would change the very nature of the BBC. But look, I'm sure that we've got to make sure that this is also fair to the licence fee payer. There is a cost of living crisis going on, but why isn't the government showing such passion and commitment and energy towards really tackling those cost of issue prices. Energy prices are about to go up, as you've just been discussing, by tens of pounds a month.
Okay.
Your travel fares are going up, everything's going up. The licence fee is £13.50 a month. So it doesn't really compare when you think about all these other costs.
Well argued, Lucy. I've got to cut across you because we've got to pay the bills here by going to the adverts. But you've been listening and watching Lucy Powell, the Labour MP and Shadow Culture Secretary. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. We'll be back after this break. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Eight o'clock on this Monday morning. It is January the 17th. Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
We are live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and your radio. So whether you're watching us in Sheffield this morning or perhaps listening to us in Glasgow, thank you for joining us. Or indeed, if you're watching us on YouTube in, say, Tenby.
Why not? Coming up this morning, tackling knife crime up next. It's part of a new bill being debated in the House of Lords this week, but many want to kill that bill. We speak to a mother whose sons lost their lives to knife crime, and I did say that correctly, sons as in plural. She has lost 2 sons to knife crime.
Sir Keir Starmer is under pressure to apologise after he was pictured drinking with colleagues during lockdown last year. What do you think should happen to him? Boris Johnson's accused of attacking the BBC to divert attention from the Downing Street lockdown parties after the Culture Secretary signalled the licence fee will be scrapped after 2027. Do you think this is enough to save the PM's skin?
Prince Harry is in a legal fight to pay for UK police protection. What do you think about this? He's offered to pay for it, but still the answer is no, and you can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews. We've already had a lady on from Winslow in Cheshire this morning. Very interesting it was to hear from her indeed. Meanwhile, protesters are calling on the House of Lords to reject the Police Crime and Sentencing and Courts Bill. They are saying they are concerned it will dismantle the right to protest as well as other civil liberties.
Yes, the House will decide today if the legislation will pass following a weekend of protests that engulfed most of the UK's biggest cities.
So we're joined by an anti-knife crime activist, Gaynor Bell, who lost one of her sons to a stabbing. Gaynor, we're sorry for your loss. I don't know what the circumstances were. What do you see as the biggest issue that allows or makes room for knife crime?
I think, there's not enough education out there for young people. I think a lot of people think that youngsters that have been killed with knife crime are involved in some sort of
but one particularly cruelly to knife crime. And, just explain to anyone watching this right now how exactly you've picked yourself up from that and been able to turn your attention to teaching these tragedies.
Yeah, when this first happened, I thought to myself, I've just got to keep my head busy, because the more you sit around and think about it, the worse you get. So I just tried to keep myself busy. I first started with going out and training some police officers, that was SIOs and FLOs, with basically how they should react and how they should cope with the victims, of when they've lost a child. I've probably been out to over 300 cases of knife crime in particular. And after going through dealing with mums and dads and brothers and sisters that had lost, which was horrendous, I just kept myself focused on that. Then I thought to myself, I need to be out there and see what are in the minds of young people. So then I started going into the detention centres and prisons. I went into many prisons and tried to get into the minds of, why they were doing it. And there's so many reasons. But one of the conclusions I 100% come to, that there needs to be more money spent in intervention and into education, and that's what I've been concentrating on mainly.
But Gaynor, what would you say to any youngster who would say, look, I only carry this to protect myself?
Yeah, this situation, we used to sort of act out a scenario, and we'd sort of act out that you went out with this knife, then all of a sudden you're in a situation, you've got no intention of using that knife, but all of a sudden you're presented with a situation. And when I've spoken to young people that have used knives, they've said, I didn't mean to do it, I didn't want to do it, but all of a sudden, if you're on your own and all of a sudden a gang comes out and you're thinking you're going to lose your own life, many times, the knife has been taken off them and used against them. But can I just say as well, people think that young people that have been victims of knife crime, that they've been involved in crime themselves. That's not always the case. As I said, my son was just sitting in an office when this happened. It can happen to anybody. I never thought I'd be in this situation. But young people who do take knives out, it just shouldn't happen. Not only are you thinking of what the devastation it brought to me and my family and the ripple effect, but you've got to think how it affects your family, your mother, your father. It's like a ripple effect. It's horrendous, and there's alternatives of where you want to go in life. Do you want to go on this road of have a nice life and, have education? I just remember speaking to a young boy in one of the detention centres, and he said to me, I won't use the words he used, but he basically said, the teacher is a bleep and I'm not doing it anymore. And I encouraged him to go back to education. He ended up he said, when I get out of prison, he said, all my friends are in crime, my mother and father are in crime. I can't be the one out. I said, well, you be the one out that does something different, and I encouraged him. He ended up opening his own business and ended up at the car showrooms. It's that intervention and that encouragement that is needed. The government put lots of money into different schemes, but they don't follow it through. They throw thousands of pounds into one scheme and then they walk away and leave it. It needs going into schools, going into probation and all the other stakeholders out there, but carrying it through, not just the one-off.
Just could you give me a short answer on this? This police crime and sentencing bill, are you in favour of it? You're in favour of part of it, or do you want to kill that bill?
No, I think it should be there because I think anything, if you've got nothing to hide, you should be open to anything. And anything to prevent knife crime, I'm thoroughly behind it.
Well, somebody who I'm not sure totally agrees with you on this is Ken Hind. Ken, you are former chair of the Haringey Independent Stop and Search Monitoring Group. And there are parts of this bill which probably appeal to you. What turns you off?
What turns me off is the intention to stop protesting. And the other thing that turns me off is extending the use of stop and search. Now, sadly, the stop and stand is not fit for purpose. They're not tackling knife crime.
Oh dear. I'm afraid we're having, as you can probably hear and see, a few issues with Ken Hind. Let's go back to Gaynor because she's still on the line for us at the moment. And I just wanted to say to you, you were just talking about how this bill is a good thing in the sense that anything that makes it harder, tougher sentencing's got to be a good thing. There will be those people, though, people that you'll have met whose life is tied up in knife crime in a way that they can't get themselves away from it. This would end up criminalising those people. And perhaps that might not be the best approach. You say it's all about education, and would you prefer to see resources funneled in that direction?
I always say every action has a consequence. If you don't want the consequences of carrying a knife or being involved in it, which might be a criminal record or whatever, don't carry a knife. That's the simple answer to me. They know that it's out there. And it's if you do the crime, do the time or get the consequences of it. This is something I try to push through to young people. There's always consequences of your actions, and think about the consequences.
Well, the big consequence of police actions, of course, we're sort of beginning to get it from Ken Hind there. A lot of people watch it and say they will be in favour of stop and search. It takes away the fear factor or the doubt. Where do you stand on that? You know how controversial it is. Where do you stand on that?
Oh, 100. Unfortunately, some young people have got criminal records of having knives. How do we know whether they've stopped, So if you see a young person as a police officer and you suspect them of having a knife, 100% stop them. That could save a life. That could save a life by stopping that person and searching them and finding a knife. If you've got nothing to hide, I would say, search me all over. I haven't got a problem. And that should be the reaction of young people. It could be their friend that's the next one that gets killed. So they should support it. Think of the consequences of carrying knives.
Yeah, but the argument against stop and search, of course, Gaynor, is that, disproportionately it's minorities, ethnic minorities that are stopped. And this stokes racial tensions and it creates disharmony within the community. And there are perfectly innocent, non-knife carrying people from ethnic minorities who feel like they are being targeted by the police when they're just going about their business as law-abiding citizens. It is a very crude tool.
Well, as I've said just now, if you've got nothing to hide, whichever ethnic you are, you shouldn't have a problem, and unfortunately, yes, I agree, sometimes, they are targeted, but if you've got nothing to hide, you shouldn't have a problem. You've got to think, if somebody you knew was carrying a knife and killed your friend, would you like them to be stopped and have that knife taken off them? I'm sure you would. Years ago, the lads used to put a comb in the back pocket or whatever as part of their dress. Now it's putting a knife in the sock, or they hide it in the street. Schools, they hide it outside playgrounds. It's like part of the dress code of, and thinking of the protection. And it should be stopped. Anything at all to stop the devastation of this epidemic of knife crime should be out there. I agree with anything that can, stop it.
Gaynor, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. As Isabel said, our condolences to you because that just never goes away. But good luck with all the work that you're continuing to do. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I had this whole problem growing up when I was a teenager in Belfast about stop and search. And, you know, my attitude was always what Gaynor's saying, you know, if you've got nothing to hide, where are you going to, what's your name, where are you from, you know, you answer the questions. And you were frisked or whatever it happened to be. I had so many friends who didn't have the same attitude, and it was a problem to them, was a problem to them, and they would talk back and they would get in trouble, they get detained, whatever it is. And I understand the hurt and the harm and the intrusion that a lot of people see this to be, or the insinuation that you are guilty or that you would have something. It just depends on your attitude, the way you see it. I did go through it. I just would suck it up. I would just suck it up and think, they're not going to find anything in me. It's not going to happen. But honestly, I've been in cars. I've been in cars where you're, you know, flagged down by the army or the police, and they say, name, and I go to say that, and the person who's with me or whatever goes, what's it got to do with you? And you think, no.
Don't start on the police.
No. But
oh, well, there you go. There's a perspective on it. I mean, I had a colleague who was of a West African origin, British citizen, and never been in trouble with the law, had a proper job, going to work, a really decent person, and was regularly stopped on their way to work just because of the colour of their skin. They looked to the police as if they were a criminal just because it was a black man walking around London, and got to the point where it was humiliating to him. You know, he would be with his children or his mother and he was being stopped by the police. You can see how it can be controversial, but equally, as Gaynor very, very powerfully says, as the mother of somebody who lost their lives in a knife attack, if it saves a life, maybe it's a price worth paying. Let us know your thoughts.
In other news, 2 teenagers have been arrested and held in Manchester following an act of terror at a synagogue in Texas on Saturday night. Malik Faisal Akram, a British man from Blackburn in Lancashire, was shot dead by the FBI after holding people hostage in a 10-hour standoff.
Scientists are warning the Tonga volcano may erupt again. Earlier today, New Zealand sent a surveillance plane to Tonga to assess the damage after a huge underwater volcano erupted on Saturday, triggering a tsunami. The eruption has covered the Pacific Islands in ash. It's cut power and severed communications.
And from today, everyone in England can now end their self-isolation period after 5 full days instead of 7. That's as long as they test negative on days 5 and 6.
16 and 17-year-olds are now able to get a COVID booster jab from today, with 40,000 teenagers now eligible. Clinically vulnerable 12 to 15-year-olds who are most at risk from COVID will also be able to get a third jab.
As the sun rises and the shops open in Bakewell in Derbyshire, we are getting excited because that means Will Hollis, he's licking his lips there quite literally because he fancies a Bakewell tart or pudding or whatever they call it. Hi, Will.
Good morning. Yes, it's as if the Lord has turned the lights on here in Bakewell in Derbyshire, the Peak District. Beautiful town, beautiful town. Around about 4,000 people actually live here. But 13 million people come to this part of the country every year for 2 reasons. One, to go walking in this beautiful Derbyshire landscape, and the other is a very special sweet treat that you can get in a couple of shops, but I've been told that the best place to get it is the original Bakewell pudding sold here in the old original Bakewell pudding shop. Now, we've been hearing, as you just said there, Eamonn, Bakewell tart, Bakewell pudding, but hopefully a lady called Gemma Beagrie is going to be the person to explain what is the difference on your doorstep here on GB News, live on TV and on radio. Good morning, Gemma. How are you doing?
Yeah, good.
If you don't mind, we'd love to come inside and see what this Bakewell pudding is about.
Absolutely. So here we have some things for you, some Bakewell puddings.
Now let's start off with the real basics. Bakewell tart or a Bakewell pudding, what is the difference?
So the Bakewell tart is apparently originally from America. It's not even an English dessert. And the Bakewell pudding was made here by mistake in the 1800s by a lady who was a cook at the White Horse Inn, which is now the Rutland Arms Hotel. So she was making a dessert for passing noblemen, messed it up, served a Bakewell pudding because that's all she'd got, and here it was born. the Bakewell pudding.
So 200 years later, that accident is very good for business, I can imagine. I just said, just before you quite politely opened the door, that people come from all around the country, and I imagine all around the world, just to sample this.
Yeah.
What does it actually mean to business here in Bakewell?
It's imperative that, I mean, the Bakewell pudding, I think, brings people in, but the town itself is so amazing. You know, everybody is inclusive. There's loads of different shops, tea rooms, loads of independents, and the tourism means everything to Bakewell. It brings hordes of people in all year round, Christmas, summer, and yeah, it's imperative to Bakewell.
And we're talking about the big issues on your doorstep on GB News, live on TV and on radio. The big conversation of the day. It won't go away. It's Boris Johnson versus Keir Starmer, this Partygate. What do people around here actually think about Boris Johnson and his parties? Is it time for him to resign?
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely think around here people just want him to get on with running the country. I think Partygate needs to just be parked away now, and it's, you know, dealt with by the lady who's doing the inquiry, and, you know, let Boris just get on with running the country.
And what about Keir Starmer? He might have been having a party as well, although some people say it's just a work event. What about that?
Yeah, I think Keir's probably just been dragged in because Boris has been so, you know, maimed by this, but I don't know. It's best left and just, you know, let's run the country.
Well, there are loads of sweet treats here on offer at this Bakewell pudding shop. I'm going to try a little bit of the Bakewell pudding, and hopefully, Eamonn and Isabel, I can send one back to you guys in the London studio.
Perfect. That might arrive just in time for tomorrow. Thank you. We'll see you a little bit later on. Stay with us here on Breakfast. Coming up after the break, we'll be talking about why the Strictly Come Dancing winner, Rose Ayling-Ellis, says giving official legal status to British Sign Language is so important. We'll be discussing it after the break. But here, first of all, is your Monday forecast. Well, looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold to start, but plenty of fine and dry weather for most. So let's take a look at the details.
Across the southwest, any early mist and fog patches will clear this morning, leaving a fine and dry day, feeling cooler than yesterday with a high of around 10 Celsius.
Cold this morning in southeast England with some isolated mist and fog at first. This will clear to leave a dry and fine day.
Chilly this morning for Wales, though there will be plenty of sunshine, so very little cloud cover, a cooler day than yesterday. A high around 9 Celsius.
It's a cold start to Monday across the Midlands, though it'll be a fine, dry and bright day with some patchy cloud in the west at times. Highs of 8 Celsius.
After a cold start across northeast England, it'll be dry and bright with plenty of sunshine, feeling a touch cooler than yesterday. High of around 7 Celsius.
A dry and fine morning across southern Scotland with plenty of sunshine and some patchy cloud. Windier and cloudier further north with a chance of patchy rain in the west.
In Northern Ireland, cold and frosty start, mist and fog. That will lift, though, throughout the morning to leave a dry and bright day with plenty of sunshine. And also plenty of sunshine this afternoon, though mist and fog will readily form across England and Wales this evening. And there you go. That's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day on this Monday. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Now, Strictly Come Dancing winner Rosaline Ellis says giving official legal status to British Sign Language would be so emotional for the deaf community.
Yes, it would give greater legal protection to the language and greater access to interpreters for children and adults alike. A bill to do so is being brought to Parliament by the Labour MP Rosie Cooper, who you just saw a moment ago. And we're going to be speaking to two really interesting people about this now. David Buxton is chair of the British Deaf Association and leader of the BSL Now campaign, who's been working on the bill with Rosie Cooper. And Matthew Banks is his British Sign Language interpreter. So a very warm welcome to you both. Now, you'll be able to see Matthew Banks, if you're watching us on the television anyway, already working overtime doing his sign language. If you're listening on the radio, what we're going to do now is ask a question to David about this, and then we're going to allow his interpreter to then bring us that response. So, David, to you first of all, just explain first of all what the idea of a legal status for British Sign Language means.
Good morning to you. The whole purpose of having this legislation is to give official status to British Sign Language, to give recognition to British Sign Language as a language that's used in the UK. Currently, it doesn't have any legal protection or legal status just now. And when we think of other languages that are used across our devolved nations, Welsh, for example, there is legislation in place to protect the language rights of those individuals, but that is not true of the deaf community. That is not true of British Sign Language. So the purpose of this legislation is to ensure that the language of the deaf community, British Sign Language, has legislative protection, which hopefully thereby encourages more access and more inclusion for deaf people in society.
And Matthew, you've just obviously interpreted that by watching this all on the screen and simultaneously now doing sign language in order for David to understand what we're saying. But this would have implications for you as well, Matthew, because it would mean that there are more of you, presumably, making interpreters more readily available for perhaps youngsters coming up through the system.
I'll jump in instead of Matthew to enable Matthew to carry on working as an interpreter. But roughly right now, we have about 1,300 sign language interpreters on the register of sign language interpreters who are qualified and registered to provide sign language interpreting services. But 1,300 interpreters across the whole of the UK is not very much. So this is hoped, I guess, as you've alluded to, that if we had legislation, we might well see the trickle-down effects of that, seeing more children learning sign language in school, maybe seeing more people wanting to train and qualify as an interpreter. But also, let's not forget, if people are learning sign language, we don't need to have interpreters potentially, because deaf people might be able to access services directly. So I think there are a lot of trickle-down services that would be, benefited from this, including hopefully an increase in sign language.
Matthew, how many deaf people would be communicating with? And are we talking about totally deaf? Or are we talking about audibly impaired?
Okay, so how many deaf people in the UK, I think was your first question. There are different statistics that gather this kind of information, and they tend to be put into different subcategories. So, for example, people that are born profoundly deaf or born deaf without access to hearing, those people are people that have relied on visual languages from birth. For example, myself, I was born with 95% of my hearing absent, but I was also born into a hearing family. My brother, my family were all hearing. So it's one thing to have services that try to encourage a deaf person to be able to speak, but ultimately that's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for me, and being able to operate in sign language is of far more comfort to me. And of course, what's really important is that we remember that English, we have speaking and listening, but we also have writing and comprehension. And I think it's really important. Myself, writing and comprehension has always been very important, but the ability to be able to then communicate in sign language is really important. And to not have that, I can't just switch my hearing on. It is not a choice. So I think having this sort of legislation would make a really big difference to those members of the deaf community to feel more included in society, which often is a society whereby people feel excluded.
And just a final thought about Rose Ayling-Ellis, because of course she just won Strictly Come Dancing. Do you feel like this is the moment when the British public are really aware of these issues, and hopefully this will make Parliament more receptive to it as well?
I think that's a really good point. I think when we talk about Parliament maybe being more aware of this, okay, but in having Rose Ayling-Ellis win Strictly Come Dancing, I think the main takeaway from that was to show that people can do anything. And I think often there is a stigma that comes with different types of disability. A deaf person couldn't possibly enjoy music. A deaf person couldn't possibly enjoy to dance. How could they? They can't hear. But actually, Rose Ayling-Ellis, in competing, and not only competing, but going on to win Strictly Come Dancing, has blown that stereotype out of the water. And I think what it goes to show, she had 2 sign language interpreters with her throughout the Strictly Come Dancing competition. So I think what it goes to show is if you have access, if you are not excluded, you can go on to do anything you want to do. And that's why I think the story of Rose Ayling-Ellis is so important. She had, not only was she given the opportunity to compete and be a part of it, she was given the opportunity to have full access to what was going on. And by having that access, she was able to succeed. And I think that's a story for deaf people to take up and down the country, for, yes, the general population to understand, but also, as you say, politicians to understand. If there is access for the deaf community, they can go on to achieve anything they want to do. So that's what's really important. So this legislation hopefully will go through Parliament. And what we shouldn't have is a situation that we have right now, whereby if you are denied access, your recourse is to the courts, and you have to argue under the Equality Act and make an argument that a reasonable adjustment hasn't been forthcoming. That's such an arduous process, not least because deaf people face additional barriers to go to court. Actually, let's not have an adversarial process. Let's just include deaf people in society from day one by recognising sign language. That's what we're asking for.
Good message, gentlemen.
Makes sense.
And thank you for getting it across. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to
Thank you very much for having us.
For bearing with us on that one. We have to work out a way that all of that is communicable from
I hope
television
it was
and radio.
understandable from home. A really interesting interview that David Buxton and Matthew Bands for us. Stay with us. Coming up after the break, Prince Harry's demanding police protection. He wants to pay for it himself. Is this another unsustainable Sussex demand? We'll be discussing it in a moment.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Let's get back into the newspapers. The time is just after 25 to 9. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster. But reviewing the papers, as they have been doing all morning, we've got the broadcaster Aggie McKenzie and the NHS doctor, Dr. Nathan Spence, who's got a shift to put in the ward, so we'll not hold him back. Aggie, we begin with The Guardian here. You've found this story. 1 million women may leave their jobs over a lack of support for those of them going through the menopause.
Yes, this survey has been done over 2,000 women, and about a quarter of them were unhappy in their jobs because of a lack of support, to the extent that they actually were leaving their jobs through kind of having painful joints, anxiety, head in a muddle, and employers not understanding or making any allowances for these conditions.
Were women expecting support, or did they just feel, I can't deal with this, so I'm going to walk away?
Well, I think maybe a bit of both. I think the sense was that employers are just not geared up to dealing with menopausal women. It's a whole other area that it's not being dealt with.
Yeah, well, yeah, I absolutely agree. It's one of those medical conditions. Is today menopause? Is tomorrow menopause? Is next week menopause? It is hard to define, isn't it?
And it's what's interesting about menopause is obviously most women will go through it during their working careers. Okay,
different ages, different
exactly,
stages.
but it's sort of an inevitable thing, isn't it? So employers, maybe it's an unrecognised gap of health support for people at work, occupational health. They need to think about this to keep women at work and support them as much as they can.
It's kind of invisible as well,
Absolutely,
isn't it? There's no kind of
you can't see it.
External damage.
Exactly.
That's right.
There's a lot of different experiences from different generations where generations ahead of us just had to get through it. It wasn't even recognised.
That's right. I remember my mother going out into the snow and just kind of burying her face in the snow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky enough to say I didn't even notice it. Lack of sensitivity possibility, but although I did have the occasional hot flash, but I like the heat, so it was always welcome. But I'm lucky, I'm very lucky to be able to say that. But for a lot of women, it's a huge problem.
Huge
you could
problem.
actually turn you mad.
Well, and it's a huge problem for families. I mean, if you live with someone, it's dealing with that and understanding what your partner is going through as well. Nathan, we turn to the Mail now. This is page 19 in the Mail today. Oh, my word. So
horror story.
20% of people have tried dentistry at home. This is like a family fortunes question, so it is. And 16, this is really scary, 16 million people no longer have a dentist at all.
Yes, so 1 in 5 people are doing their own dentistry at home because they can't get an appointment to see a dentist. So 16 million people don't have dentists currently. And this is one of the big issues here is people leaving doing their NHS work. So 40% of dentists in the next year are considering leaving the NHS or going abroad or retiring.
Yeah.
And this is mirrored in medicine a little bit as well. It's a bit further ahead in dentistry, but we're going to have the problem too of we train excellent doctors, excellent dentists in this country, but we struggle to retain them.
Right.
Because the funding isn't necessarily there.
OK, what do you think the solution is to retaining them? I mean, signing some sort of indenture or putting them through university and then saying you've got to spend 5 years in the health service, or what?
Well, there is this sort of stick approach, absolutely, but I think a carrot's better, isn't it? Trying to improve conditions, improve pay, improve hours, improve support. And I think when you do exit surveys of people going abroad, especially medicine, to Australia, New Zealand, why are you leaving? It's for the better quality of life. It's not necessarily for the better money.
Yeah.
And that's something I think we're missing a little bit. I think this story really highlights it in dentistry, and we're going to see the same thing in medicine soon.
I'd like to do a shout out to dental nurses as well, male or female dental nurses, because I don't think they get enough credit, and I believe they're very hard to recruit nowadays as well.
Absolutely. And these private, why would you, a private clinic is much more of an inviting environment to work in.
Yes.
So why do the NHS work as well? So we really need to work on that.
Why would you want to look down somebody's mouth all day?
I know. I think being a dentist must be one of the most difficult jobs. It's like being a traffic warden. Who ever wants to encounter one of these people in your daily life? You only go to the dentist if you absolutely have to. Yeah. It's a tough one, actually.
Yeah, and tougher during the pandemic then. So the world's top 10 richest people have benefited from the pandemic. To what degree? What degree are we talking about?
Yes, 10 richest men, of course. They've seen their global wealth double.
Double.
That's right. And this is according to World Bank figures. And at the same time, 163 million people have been driven below the poverty line. Now, Oxfam reckoned that if there was a one-off 99% windfall tax on the COVID wealth gains of these people, this would supply enough money to vaccinate the whole of the population in the world and to tackle climate change. And this, even after this levy, those top 10 billionaires would still be £10 billion better off. So that's quite an interesting thought, isn't it?
It's an interesting thought. If you have benefited directly from protective clothing, or if you benefit from parcel delivery.
That's right. I mean, Jeff Bezos is the second richest man in the world after Elon Musk. Yeah. So, I think there needs to be a bit of give and take here, doesn't there?
Give and take.
Yes.
Count your blessings. In the Metro, finally, Nathan, you found Brooklyn Beckham. What's he up to?
Well, he's got in a bit of hot water. So he was promoting these vegan trainers on a picture he had taken, but he also proclaims he was seen eating meat in the same week. And his fans are saying, well, hang on, Brooklyn, are you vegan, are you not? Are you eating meat one minute and wearing vegan shoes the next? And it got me thinking, actually, about this dichotomy, isn't there? Either you have to be everything or nothing. And when it comes to making lifestyle changes that are positive, doing a bit more vegan food, not smoking so much, not drinking so much, there's a feeling you have to do everything or don't do it at all. But there's a real benefit in even doing a little bit. A little bit's better than nothing.
So he's doing his little bit. He's, shoes, they're vegan, no animals involved in that.
I think we shouldn't judge how people want to, however they want to incorporate vegan stuff into their lifestyle.
He's doing his bit.
Absolutely.
He's doing a bit. Thanks for doing your bit today, Nathan. I really appreciate it. As I say, I know you're heading out to an NHS ward after this, so thank you for your perspective on the stories. Aggie, really appreciate it.
Been lovely joining you. Thanks very much.
That's good. It has been very lovely. And one of the stories you touched upon first time out, of course, was Prince Harry and his security detail, or lack of it. Let's go to Isabel for more on that.
Yes, so Prince Harry is threatening legal action against the government over their refusal to issue him and his family with UK police security should he ever return to the country. Well, let's bring in Will Geddes. He's a security specialist and friend to the show. Very good morning to you, Will. Look, has he got a point? Is it safe for the sixth in line to return to the UK without police protection, given his experiences that we saw last summer when he came back to unveil that statue of his mother? He was chased down the street by paparazzi afterwards and is understandably shaky about it all, given his mother's history.
Well, there's some good points there, Isabel, in terms of his potential risk profile. And yes, there are going to be various individuals that will have an interest or will be fixated people, as they are termed. However, the justification for him to have royalty protection is very questionable if he has a competent and capable private security company. There are many times that I've taken or brought foreign dignitaries into this country and also into other countries, and you can work with law enforcement, obviously in terms of the assessment of risk, any intelligence that could be useful. But he is questioning, from what I understand, the fact that he actually feels he needs to have royalty protection. And in this instance, I think that maybe is a bit of a big ask.
That's interesting. OK, so you think that he would still, with private security, be able to access intelligence information, which is what he says he needs. I mean, we only saw, didn't we, on Christmas Day, an intruder into Windsor Castle with a crossbow. There is a risk to the royal family, and he can understandably argue that he'd need access to that intelligence.
Yeah, no, and I don't think there is a question over intelligence potentially being shared with him if there was a viable threat that was perceived to present a risk to him or his family. I mean, the Metropolitan Police have been doing this for many, many years. They've assisted, obviously, again, as I mentioned, sort of foreign dignitaries when they come into this country. Obviously, being a member of the royal family, his risk rating is significantly high. However, again, as a private security company, if they are well-resourced, and many private securities will actually employ former royalty and diplomatic protection officers, there is no reason why they can't coordinate with their counterparts in the Met, gather the certain intelligence which is relevant, and then ensure that there is the suitable protection measures around it. I think it's very important that royalty and diplomatic protection aren't perceived to be an entity that could be privately hired. That will undermine their credibility, not only worldwide, but also in terms of what their primary functions are.
And do you think that's why the government then is denying it? Because he's happy to pay for it himself. He's saying, I'll pay for this out of my own pocket. That's why I've signed up for all these big deals with Netflix and Spotify. But you think it could undermine their abilities?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and there is no reason why private security can't provide it. Now, he has US security, obviously, over in the west coast of America. They will be quite used to obviously carrying firearms. Here in the United Kingdom, private security can't carry firearms. But again, you know, I've operated in various parts of the world in a private capacity without carrying a firearm and being able to provide suitable and adequate security for a visitor to that country.
Well, how would you stop somebody with a crossbow without a firearm then?
Well, again, it's, you know, security isn't just about sort of putting yourself in the way of harm. It's about planning the dignitary's visit or the prince's visit and ensuring that there is suitable security around the venues that he's going to be staying at or visiting, the accommodation where he's going to be staying. You know, there are many, many instances, Isabel, that a lot of close protection and personal protection is about planning and managing that trip rather than necessarily jumping in the way of a crossbow or a bullet for that matter.
Fair enough. And you know, of course, he's got a very young family. You can understand why he's twitchy. Lilibet is just 7 months old. Does that make planning all the more difficult, given there will be little ones around, perhaps plans changing at the last minute? Children are unpredictable.
Oh, yeah, they certainly can be. But I think, again, you know, having small children isn't really going to make that much of a difference. It's just another consideration within the security planning. And I think with the adequate support of nannies, assistants and the like, you know, again, you can make sure that the children are safe as well.
OK, so if you have a crystal ball, where do you see this going? Do you think he's going to win his judicial review? Do you think he'll have his way? Or do you think he's going to be told once again, you've chosen to leave the royal family, you can't have royal protection?
Isabel, I think it's going to be the latter.
OK, interesting to talk to you. Will Geddes, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
That was security expert Will Geddes there. Temporary train timetables are being introduced today on a number of services around the country. Some of those are running just one train in and out of London an hour. All of it down to COVID isolation rules, many people working from home as well. Our South East reporter Ellie Costello has the details.
Well, today I'm outside Upminster train station in Essex, which is serviced by a C2C, which runs along the south of Essex. And from today, it has a reduced timetable with a reduced number of trains running into London. And that is partly down to a staff shortage. They have lots of drivers and reception staff that are isolating with the Omicron variant. And it's also down to a loss of passengers. Lots of people are following government advice from December, telling them to work from home where they can. And that means that fewer and fewer people are getting the train into their offices in London. And in some parts of the southeast, passenger footfall is down at 40 to 50%. So it makes it very difficult for these train companies to keep a full service running. So I spoke to Simon Calder, who's a travel expert, and I asked him why these train companies are running reduced services.
All the train operators are saying we are really worried about the number of passengers, and that, I think, is more important than the depleted staff numbers. And why would you run empty trains? That's the big question. They're already being subsidised by taxpayers to the tune of £1 million an hour. It's perfectly understandable that the train companies should want to align the services they run with the number of passengers they've got and the number of available staff. But the problem with cutting services is that you reduce the train offers maybe from once every half hour to just once an hour, and that puts more and more people off travelling by train. The only way that the rail industry is going to be rescued is by people leaving their cars, whether it's for work or for fun, just switching to the train instead, and you've got to make it an attractive option.
So that's Simon Calder there, who is a travel expert. And it's not just C2C who are affected. South Western have also got a reduced timetable that is out today. And Southern Rail, also in the southeast, has been in the press a lot recently in the past few weeks. They had a 2-week period of not actually sending any trains to London Victoria. And that again was due to a staff shortage due to COVID and a decrease in passenger numbers. And it's a pattern that we're seeing across the UK too. On Hull trains, they have temporary timetables until February the 12th. On Great Northern, they have a reduced service until further notice. Also reduced service on ScotRail, London North Eastern, London North Western, South Western Railway, as we just discussed, and West Midlands as well have got replacement buses and cancellations. So it does seem that anywhere in the country now you're more likely to have a delayed service or a less frequent service than you would have a normal one. It's definitely something that people are experiencing up and down the country. But what is happening today is that period of self-isolation for the Omicron variant is being reduced from 7 days, based on the fact that you've had 2 negative lateral flows, to 5 days. And there is the hope for these train companies that that will ease some of the staffing pressures, which has called for this reduced timetabling.
Ellie Costello reporting there on what's going to be a bit of a nightmare for commuters this week.
Yeah, on all fronts there for that. Police are searching for a missing Berkshire woman last seen leaving a nightclub in Windsor in the early hours of Sunday morning. Marnie Clayton is described as white, with a slim build and with brown hair. Her family say her disappearance is out of character.
Thames Valley Police have urged anyone who sees the 22-year-old to call 999.
Funeral costs have dropped for the first time in 18 years after funeral homes were ordered to display clearer price lists for bereaved customers.
With the cost of living going up across the board, people arranging funerals are looking to keep costs down by spending less on flowers or choosing a cheaper coffin. The pandemic meant that the cheapest option, a cremation without a service, actually rose hugely in popularity. Was that because it was cheaper or because that was COVID restrictions limiting people to small funerals?
Well, it's working, whatever it was. New Zealand has sent a plane to Tonga to assess the damage after that huge volcanic eruption and the tsunami that followed. The eruption has covered the Pacific Islands in ash, cut power, severed communications. No deaths have been reported so far, but lots of observation planes flying over the island and so many people ready with help from Fiji, from New Zealand, from Australia, as soon as they work out what the conditions actually are.
Well, and experts are warning that they think the volcano may erupt a second time as well.
Do you know the amazing thing? I saw a global picture of this in one of the papers, from a satellite. And it's amazing, massive though it is, and the disruption and the fatalities that it will have caused. It was just like a little pimple on the Earth.
It's a tiny little island.
Just incredible. The actual eruption itself, but it was there. It was seen very much. Now that's obviously very close up, but we saw the whole globe and the satellite imagery from the
and
planet
of course,
Earth.
that ash cloud making it really hard for experts to assess exactly how bad the damage is because they can't properly
when you think
see
about
the
it,
island.
Water. So you've got water in reservoirs, water in rivers, water, streams, all sorts of things. and the ash comes down and pollutes all of that. So that's going to be
it's devastating.
Issue.
So sad. The people of Tonga, our thoughts with them. And we're going to try and keep our eye on that developing story for you. We're also talking this morning about millions of Britons now drinking up to 50 units of alcohol a week. Are you one of them? Apparently it's another sign of the long-term effects of locking the country down. It's a rise in harmful drinking. They think it's the Royal College of Psychiatrists said the switch to at-home drinking means sessions last much longer, that's a fair point, than they would in the pub.
But it is interesting, you know, I know medics will not want these levels to be maintained, and they'll talk about, you know, liver rot and all sorts of things like that. But it's making a lot of people feel happy, it's making a lot of people feel relaxed, it's making a lot of people feel human in many ways, even though it masks maybe other things that are going on in their life. And I often say, what is worse? You know, living without the tablet or the alcohol in this case, and living with the problems that other things bring.
I guess it's just the distinction between harmful drinking and just the odd drink here and there, and as long as it's within sort of safe, legal, not legal, but recommended limits, then it can't be a bad thing. But I think the worry is people are just drinking and drinking and drinking much longer. If you're affected by that, let us know. We love to hear your views here on Breakfast. After the break, we'll be talking about whether you're motivated this Monday morning. Our mindset coach, Janie Holiday's there. It is Blue Monday. It means everybody's a bit miserable. Not with Janie Holiday on the case. She'll be here shortly. But first of all, here's your weather. Well, looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold to start, but plenty of fine and dry weather for most. So let's take a look at the details.
Across the southwest, any early mist and fog patches will clear this morning, leaving a fine and dry day, feeling cooler than yesterday with a high of around 10 Celsius.
Cold this morning in southeast England with some isolated mist and fog at first. This will clear to leave a dry and fine day.
Chilly this morning for Wales, though there will be plenty of sunshine, so very little cloud cover, cooler day than yesterday. A high around 9 Celsius.
It's a cold start to Monday across the Midlands, though it'll be a fine, dry and bright day with some patchy cloud in the west at times. Highs of 8 Celsius.
After a cold start across northeast England, it'll be dry and bright with plenty of sunshine, feeling a touch cooler than yesterday. High of around 7 Celsius.
A dry and fine morning across southern Scotland with plenty of sunshine and some patchy cloud. Windier and cloudier further north with a chance of patchy rain in the west.
In Northern Ireland, cold and frosty start, mist and fog. That will lift though throughout the morning to leave a dry and bright day with plenty of sunshine. And also plenty of sunshine this afternoon, though mist and fog will readily form across England and Wales this evening. And there you go. That's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day on this Monday. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
More details, more repercussions about this volcano just off Tonga, underwater volcano which has erupted. Details are scarce, but we can go to Katie Greenwood. Katie's from the Red Cross and is based in Fiji, joining us now. Katie, thanks very much indeed. I know it must be a very, very busy and stressful time for you. What do you know so far? Because I know Australia and New Zealand have sent in observation planes. Are you getting any feedback yet?
We hope to get feedback, very much hope to get feedback on those flights, those surveillance flights that happened today. The initial pictures that they've captured are being shared, of course, as is appropriate, first of all, with the Tongan government. But then we hope tomorrow that those images and that information will be shared with the international disaster relief community so that we can better triangulate information, plan our responses accordingly, especially if there's anything that needs to be supported from outside of Tonga itself.
I was just saying here in the studio, things we don't really think of, but water supplies, for instance, all must be polluted with the amount of ash that was spewed out.
That's right. The majority of the population in Tonga relies on rainwater for their drinking water and for their water usage. And so that ashfall really is a significant disturbance for clean drinking water and for hygiene and health needs in the country. It's definitely one of the key priorities for the relief response will be making sure that people have access to water purification technology and implements, and certainly Red Cross will be providing hygiene kits and buckets and purification equipment for people to use. The other issue is that ashfall, about 80 or 90% of people in Tonga also rely on their own food production for subsistence agriculture and cash crops. So the ashfall on gardens is not particularly useful for them either. So we're really looking for more information about the effects there as well.
This is clearly catastrophic for Tonga. How seriously are you planning for worst case scenario? And at the moment, do we have any idea on what the kind of human cost to this could all be?
Our worst case scenario is that we're figuring around about 80,000 people affected. And when we say that, affected could be in different ways. It could be that their water supply is affected. It could be that their homes are affected from inundation, from tsunami waves. We're quite confident from the information that we do have that it's not as catastrophic as we had first possibly anticipated in those key population centres, which is very good news. We are waiting for more information about that. But it's the outer-lying islands and the low-lying atolls that are closer to the eruption site. That's where we hold more grave fears and where we really want to see more data coming out of to make sure that we can access those communities as soon as possible as required.
Katie, you may be seeing another eruption. I mean, scientists haven't ruled that out.
That's exactly right. And it makes the logistical issues of reaching those islands very difficult. Not all of the islands are inhabited, but there are 170 islands in Tonga itself. So you can imagine the logistical issues of trying to reach those communities when we don't know exactly whether there will be more further eruptions. There's a lot of ash and debris still falling around. And also we do have those disturbances from the tsunami waves that are happening every so often when there is a further eruption. It's definitely a challenging response for the agencies involved. But because
do you need, Katie, people here at the other side of the world, what can they do for you?
Well, I think that people can certainly keep a watch and listen for if there are appeals that get released as we have further information and confirmation of the extent of the disaster. And also there's a big diaspora community of Tongans outside of Tonga who are watching and waiting to hear about their loved ones and their families. As soon as we're able to get those communications up and running, we'll be asking people to register that they are safe and well. And for family who are looking to make contact, we'll be looking for them as well. So people should keep an eye out for those kinds of communications.
It brings back such dreadful memories, doesn't it, of the terrible Boxing Day tsunami all those years ago. But, Kate, we do hope all of your rescue efforts are successful. And as you say, that perhaps it may not have been as catastrophic as first thought. We wish you very well. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Andrew Pearce, the broadcaster and journalist and columnist and all-round good egg, joins us now in the studio. Very good to see you, mate. Somehow what we're about to talk about pales into insignificance when you look at a story like that. But there's so many things. There's Partygate, there's Prince Harry and his bodyguards, or lack of them. First of all, has Boris survived? Well, he hasn't, because Sue Gray's yet to report.
Yeah, and we know he's spoken to Sue Gray, the civil servant, and we think the report might be out by the end of the week or possibly next week. I think he is going to survive, come what may, unless she actually says he's broken the law, which I don't think she will say. I think he'll survive, and I think Tory MPs don't want a leadership contest right now. What would it look like to the world when we're still in a pandemic? We're coming out of it slowly but surely, that the Tory party then engage in an act of regicide. They kill their leader and then have a long leadership contest, which will take weeks and weeks. It will look so...
But would he learn from this, Andrew? Would he change from this, or...?
Well, we've heard it. Look, we keep saying that Boris Johnson's going to instil some order into the chaos that is Number 10. I've been writing about Number 10 for 30-odd years. I've never known it to be so shambolic. It's hopeless, that's the point.
Is it hopeless and shambolic because he's hopeless and shambolic?
I don't think he's hopeless, but I just think he's not very good at that sort of thing.
Shambolic.
Governing. He's good at winning elections.
Good at winning elections. He's a great speaker. He's a great communicator. He does get things done. He got Brexit done, and I think, actually, he'll be judged well on the pandemic, because we are probably going to come out of it quicker than any other country in Europe. The vaccine rollout's been brilliant, but running on Number 10, no, it's a shambles.
Did you see that quote yesterday from Dominic Cummings where he said to Boris Johnson, this place is a shambles, it's chaotic, and you're more worried about me sorting out the chaos than keeping it? And he said, well, great, I love it, because when things are chaotic, everybody's got to look at me.
Well, there is a bit of that. Look, he's a politician, so he's incredibly narcissistic and self-centred and vain. They all are. But I think the Tories... I think the other thing is there's no obvious successor to him. So that's another reason why we've only got 6 or 7 MPs have gone public against him. They need 54 to move against him, and I think they'll wait until, at the very least, the local elections in May.
And just can I ask you about this Operation Red Meat, a deeply cynical ploy, if it is to be believed, to stop those letters going in from the backbenches, is to give them some of the stuff that really gets them going, like getting tough on migrants in the channel or scrapping the BBC. Well, does that save us bacon?
Well, on the BBC, people are saying, they're going to freeze the licence fee with a view to getting rid of it altogether. This is all because of Boris's problems. Look, I spoke to Nadine Dorries, the Culture Secretary, in October at the party conference. I said, will the licence fee be around in 10 or 20 years? She said, will the BBC? So this has been a long time coming, and we were always going to get the licence fee announcement this week. So I don't buy that's part of Operation Red Meat. Okay. But getting tough with migrants crossing the Channel, hurrah, at last. They're going to deploy the military to do it. They should have done that months ago. That is part of the operation to bolster him. He wants to try and say to Tory MPs, I've still got ideas, I've got things to do, and I'm going to get on with it. And I, for one, hope they do get the military in the Channel.
In the interest of balance, what do you make about Sir Keir Starmer being caught swigging a pint during lockdown last year? We should stress this was April 2021 as opposed to May 2020, which was slightly different.
Were we still in lockdown, though?
We were still in lockdown.
Look, the reason I think he's in difficulty here and he's refusing to apologise, that photograph was taken at 10 o'clock at night. He's in an office, he's having a beer with other people. There's 5 or 6 people in there. The rules were quite clear. You don't start drinking in the office. When you've finished your work, go home. So why was he... Look, it's not on the same level as Partygate, where we know one of the senior civil servants sent an invitation out saying, bring your own booze. Ludicrous.
It's still hypocrisy, though, isn't it?
But it is hypocrisy, And he won't apologise because he's been banging away night and day about Partygate. Hello, Mr Starmer. Sir Keir, sorry. Shouldn't he be squeaky clean himself? I think this looks a bit odd.
Prince Harry. Well, look, the guy's saying, give me some guards around me, give me some protection, give me people who have access to, you know, MI5 files and things and can discharge weapons if needs be, and I'll pay for it myself.
Look,
why not?
Why does he think, having given up the royal life, living in the United States where he doesn't do any royal engagement, he can just rock up when it suits him and say, I need some Scotland Yard protection officers and I need them right now. It doesn't work like that. They're not there at the whim and disposal of celebrities, which is what he is now. He's not a royal, when they decide to come back.
He's sixth in line to the throne.
So what? He's giving it up.
Yeah, well, this is what Jake's tweeted, saying he should have private security like any other celebrity. Yeah. That's all they are now. But Dave Begley says anyone who's high profile and at risk of being assassinated or attacked or any risk to their life should be allowed to pay for their protection in the UK.
He can bring his own protection officers with him, but they won't be armed. Yeah. But he can bring his own protection officers with him. What's the problem with that?
Good question.
Well, it depends if the other guy's got a gun.
Well, you know, if he's at a high-profile public event, which you'd imagine other royals might be there, there'll be a lot of protection officers anyway, so he's crying wolf as usual, and I'm fed up with him. Why doesn't he stop whinging? He says he's going to sue the government. It's his grandmother's government. He's just whinging and wailing from the United States. Don't forget me.
How much do you think she's behind him, winding him up?
You don't want me to be rude about Meghan Markle, do you? I think, look, he chose to marry her. She chose to live in the United States. That's their new life. I think she probably does wind him up a bit. But he's the royal, in the sense he's still Prince Harry. But I'm sorry, mate, if you do come back, bring your own security and stop.
The reality is, it might just mean he doesn't come back.
Oh, we'll be devastated about that.
Or if he does, he comes on his own and leaves his wife and children at home.
We'll be even more devastated about that.
But then Her Majesty the Queen may never meet Lilibet, her great-granddaughter.
She's got plenty of other great-grandchildren.
But the more I think about
Harry.
that Lilibet name, I mean, if I was going to call one of my children Andrew or Isabel, I'd probably phone you and say, do you mind if I call the child whatever? They've used a pet name that Prince Philip used for his wife or his girlfriend or whatever she was then, Queen Elizabeth. It seems callous to me, doesn't it?
And breathtakingly cynical. What Meghan and Harry are doing is making sure that people know their daughter is so royal because she's got the nickname of the Queen of Britain and the Commonwealth. It's breathtakingly cynical, especially as it seems she may never get to see her. And how often do we see her? They don't want us to see photographs of her either. And she's, of course, going to be a princess one day.
Let us know your thoughts this morning. Plenty of you have been sending them in.
Nice
Thank you. Always, that's your debut on our show.
I like being called a good egg.
Yeah, you're a good egg.
Bad egg.
No. Are you soft-boiled or hard-boiled?
Hard-boiled. I hope you'll come back many times. We loved having you on. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Right, from the hard-boiled eggs in the studio to the Bakewell tarts of Derbyshire, let's bring in our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, who's out on the doorstep this morning. Very good morning to you, Will. Look, we've been talking about a sort of hardening of the public mood against Boris Johnson in all of this Partygate nonsense. What are you detecting?
Good morning. Yes, it's certainly a tricky position that the Prime Minister finds himself in. Every morning, it's like he's waking up from a bad dream, a nightmare that just won't go away. But what's really interesting is, depending on where you are in the country, you'll hear some really different views. And on your doorstep today, we've been to the local pudding shop. We've also spoken to people on the doorstep of their home before they went out. Now, though, it's time to go to the local watering hole. And where else would you go rather than the Queen's Arms here in Bakewell? Now, if we are lucky, I don't know how late she was working, but Linda Slack, who is the landlady of this pub, should be behind this door, hopefully. Hiya, Linda.
Morning.
Hiya, how you doing, Linda? We're live on GB News, TV and on radio. If you don't mind, we're just going to have a little bit of a look around.
Yes, please do.
Countryside pubs, Derbyshire Dales in the Peak District. You cannot get much better than this. This is a 300-year-old pub here, the Queen's Arms, but they have had the electricity and the plumbing put in since then. So if you do come for a drink here, you'll get a cold one. But I think the tip of the iceberg, the best part about this pub is, of course, this roaring fire. Linda, a centrepiece like this, what does having a pub like this in Bakewell do for the town, do for the visitors that come here?
I think it's a central focal point for both visitors and locals. Very much a locals pub, but we do rely a lot on visitors. We have a good amount of visitors visit Bakewell on a regular basis. We've got Haddon Hall on one side of us, we've got Chatsworth on the other, and we've got beautiful dales. People come on massive scales to visit the dales. Parking can be a nightmare. The locals don't like it. We could do with extra parking. But otherwise, I have no complaints about the visitors in Bakewell at all.
I can confirm when I've been here for Christmas markets as well as visits during lockdown, it has been manic. It's been a bit of a nightmare to try and find parking. But what does tourism actually mean? I think it's 13 million people and an unbelievable number of people that come to visit this part of the Peak District.
Yeah. As I say, without the visitors, we wouldn't be here. We do rely on them very heavily in Bakewell. We have all sorts of things going off through the year that brings people to the town, and we've got lots of extra hotels arriving, which brings more and more visitors. We're very lucky.
And this is a pub that right now, obviously, it's closed at 9 o'clock in the morning. When you do open, though, whether it's a Monday or a Saturday, it's going to be rammed in here. There's going to be a really difficult time if you want to try and find a seat. What's it been like during lockdown?
Oh, terrible, terrible. Walk round Bakewell, see visitors, all locals. Locals are shout, get that pub open. It was very difficult times. We were very lucky that we had the help that we did, and without that, we just wouldn't be here.
And that's the big question of the day. Boris Johnson, Partygate, it's a story that just won't go away. Obviously, there's some conversations around Keir Starmer. Did he have a party or a work event? But for somebody like you in a Conservative area that seems to be quite a fan of Boris Johnson, what does it mean to you that he was having a party when your pub was locked down?
I think lots of people were having parties when they shouldn't have been doing. He just got caught out, probably. I have no problem with Boris. As I say, if he hadn't have helped us out with grants, the furlough scheme, we wouldn't have staff, we wouldn't be here. It didn't do anything other than let us tick over through the time we were closed. We were very lucky to still be here.
And then just really quickly, that big question, stay in office or resign?
I think stay in office. Nobody has had to deal with a situation like he's dealt with. There was no book written to go by. It was just, he winged it, didn't he? And I think he's done the best of a bad job, really.
Well, it seems to be the consensus here in Bakewell. A lot of people do want to see Boris Johnson to stay in office, but depending on where you go in the country, that might be a very different answer.
Of course, Will. Will, what is it like for you getting out and about and meeting people, knocking those doors, and just various parts of the country? This is on your beat. What's it like actually hearing what makes the news for people?
Eamonn, I won't lie to you, this job is unbelievable. It's incredible. Getting to actually bounce around places like the Derbyshire Dales, like Nottinghamshire, where I'm born and bred, Lincolnshire. Everywhere you go, you'll hear a different type of opinion. It's not that one consensus that you might sometimes find on Twitter or social media, where you end up in that little bit of an echo chamber. What I will say, though, is people are proud of where they're from. They're proud to represent their local pub, their local butchers, and I think a lot of people are really excited to see me knocking on their doorstep to hear their views, because people feel like they're unheard. People feel like they're forgotten and that they've been shushed for quite a long time. So it's really nice to hear what people think and to give them a voice right here on GB News.
Great. I bet you they're very disappointed that it's you and not me or Isabel. No one has a clue who you are.
Don't listen to him.
No one, that's the downside. Has anybody ever said to you, who are you, son?
Do you know what? I often get, are you Nigel Farage's son from GB News? But however, what I will say, ever since you've joined us here on GB News, Eamonn, everybody says, bring Eamonn to GB News.
There you go.
Well, we're going to have to do that, Will. We're going to have to do that. Bakewell would have been a very good choice as well. Very good. Thanks for the tour, mate. Thanks for introducing us to so many people this morning and knocking all those doors. Really appreciate it, Will.
Yeah, you see, we've been calling On Your Doorstep the segment that Bradley Harris comes to life. He's got some competition from Will. They're brilliant on the beat. It's lovely getting them out and about and hearing from you. And he's so right.
The trouble is, everybody thinks they're going to get 5,000 quid if somebody knocks it.
We'll have to see if we... Yeah.
Not to be asked, you know, should Boris resign or not. They're all sitting thinking it's Andy Peters or something coming to the door.
Maybe down the line we'll introduce that, but we're still in the start-up phase, so GB News can't afford that just yet. Look, stay with us after the break. We'll be talking about all those people who can afford everything. The celebrities of the day. Our Showbiz editor for the day is Ellie Phillips. She'll be here in a minute.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for...
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
We're going to end the programme with a nice roundup of Showbiz with the very nice Ellie Phillips to take you through the entertainment stories from the weekend and into this new week. And it's Robbie Williams.
Yeah, you say it's a nice segment, but we're talking about a contract on his life, a hitman.
And is this serious?
This is serious. So what's happened is Robbie Williams has come out today with an interview with The Mirror and also been covered by The Express that he had a contract out to kill him. He was targeted by a hitman at the height of his career. So yeah, he went around knowing that someone wanted to take his life, and he's said that it's really affected him. You know, he doesn't actually really like meeting people anymore. He's quite scared of meeting strangers.
Is he?
And one of the reasons that he decided to kind of relocate to America is because that he had a level of anonymity there. He never really broke America, and said that actually he didn't really want to try and break America.
So that worked in his favour.
Yeah. He liked the fact that no one knew him, no one was going to try and get his
I know a lot of famous football people who like America for the same reason. But look, we're looking at Robbie there, and there was all that talk last week about him worried about his thinning hair and all that. It looks scrumptious.
He looks great. I mean, he looks fantastic. And also, I've got to say as well, he said it's, you know, basically extreme fame meets extreme anxiety and depression, and it can all collide in this moment. And the things that go unseen as someone who's really famous and in the public eye that people often don't talk about. And I think it's really good that he's come out and said this. I don't think it's good that he's had a contract on him, but I think it's good that he said that those pressures, you know, they can make you sad. What you go through as someone on screen can be really, really stressful, and you never put that across because, especially in the world of pop, everything is shiny and fabulous. But I think it's nice for fans and normal people to know that as great as things might look on a screen, actually everyone goes through something and it's okay, and it's good to talk about it. So I think, it's
being a celeb doesn't make you happy.
Doesn't make you happy.
What about...
You knew what we were going through, but Isabel, like, turn up here every day with a smile on our faces.
Vibrantly positive, is it?
Am I, like, contagious to you?
So contagious. Do you know, by the way, In Sync went for pink today.
But I know you inside out.
You just know it inside out. Zayn Malik. Okay, so he had this really weird breakup with his baby mama, Gigi Hadid, supermodel, daughter of Yolanda Turner. And we didn't really understand why, but they had this fallout, Yolanda and Zayn. But now what's happened? Turns out he's been a bad boy.
He's been a bad boy. So I've got to say, he and Gigi are no longer together. They split up in October.
But we didn't really know why.
There seemed to be a lot of tensions between the family. He actually pleaded no contest to an altercation. It went to court, with Yolanda, Gigi's mother. That issue seemed to be that Yolanda had turned up at their house when Gigi wasn't there. She was around the world doing her modelling, doing her, I'm fabulous. And Zayn was at home with their child, with their baby, because they've got a daughter together, and didn't want the mum to be there. It was like, no, you can't just let yourself in and come into my home.
Yes, but did she suspect foul play and want to just try and catch him out?
So now what's come out is that a friend of Towie star Abby Clark, The Only Way is Essex, a friend of Abby has come out and told The Sun that Abby had a secret fling with Zayn Malik behind Gigi's back, which is like, that is awful, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But she's come out and said that Zayn said that Abby reminded him of his ex-girlfriend, who obviously we all know from being one of the biggest pop stars in the world, and Perry Edwards, Little Vix Perry Edwards, and all this stuff's come out now, and it just seems really sad that I think we thought that their breakup was to do with this family tension, but actually now he was being a bad boy, reportedly, and he was loving one of our reality stars over in the UK when he had this supermodel girlfriend who he has a daughter with now.
That's the sad thing about all of this, isn't it? Is that there's a little one left.
And also, I feel like
family.
When you're in this showbiz world, these things do eventually come out, and then it's not the baby's fault, obviously, but something that she's going to have to know about when she gets older as well, which is a bit sad as well.
Oh dear.
I always look at Perry Edwards, who I think is very beautiful, and I think she looks like a young Madonna.
She does. That's so true.
That's a really, really good shout. Well, yeah, because the thing is, Abby Clark from The Only Way is Essex, I don't think looks anything like.
I can't picture her, I must be honest. Yeah, I can't think.
But apparently he said to her, you remind me of my ex, Perry, and I was really sad about that breakup, and kind of just opened up about a lot of things. And there were also some reports coming out that Abby said that she called Zayn her Mr. Grey, because they had a very 50 Shades of Grey relationship as well. And that's when you're like, wow, I'm getting way too much information from what was going on there as well. But yeah, there were a lot of stories that came out in The Sun, all about Zayn coming from Abby's friend.
So it doesn't sound like Zayn and Gigi are getting back together anytime soon then, does it?
Would you forgive?
Absolutely not.
Do you forgive?
No, not in that circumstance, sorry.
There you are. There you are. That's the final word.
Would you forgive?
Final word. I can understand people. I could understand.
Ruthie, that's a carte blanche.
Ellie, thank you very much.
Ellie.
Always good. Wish I was longer with you, but we had Boris Johnson and Prince Harry and all sorts of things to talk about. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. Isabel and I will now say adios to you on this Monday morning. Please come back and join us again tomorrow if you can. What do we have? We're 6 until 9:30.
Yeah, and coming up after this now, Tom Harwood will have the briefing for you. But first of all, here's the weather. Have a great day. Well, looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold to start, but plenty of fine and dry weather for most. So let's take a look at the details.
Across the southwest, any early mist and fog patches will clear this morning, leaving a fine and dry day, feeling cooler than yesterday with a high of around 10 Celsius.
Cold this morning in southeast England with some isolated mist and fog at first. This will clear to leave a dry and fine day.
Chilly this morning for Wales, though there will be plenty of sunshine, so very little cloud cover, cooler day than yesterday. A high around 9 Celsius.
It's a cold start to Monday across the Midlands, though it'll be a fine, dry and bright day with some patchy cloud in the west at times. Highs of 8 Celsius.
After a cold start across northeast England, it'll be dry and bright with plenty of sunshine, feeling a touch cooler than yesterday. High of around 7 Celsius.
A dry and fine morning across southern Scotland with plenty of sunshine and some patchy cloud. Windier and cloudier further north with a chance of patchy rain in the west.
In Northern Ireland, cold and frosty start, mist and fog. That will lift, though, throughout the morning to leave a dry and bright day with plenty of sunshine. So